Your speech was ridiculous. Anyone prefers a podcast to a weak-kneed teacher's pet.
It's
When
true.
you change your mind about podcasts, then I'll change my mind about you.
I forgot there was a second part. I remember the teacher's pet part.
Yeah. You know what I like about these?
They're written out,
Yeah, and also no one can say that
You're
I'm doing
the
a
accent.
bad impression.
but it's probably not what Buster Keaton sounds like.
That's not him. That's the girl.
I know, but then the retort.
That was all her.
It's all her?
Yes, she's saying. She's offering the ultimatum.
Right.
When you change your mind about athletes, I'll change my mind about you.
Yeah, sure.
She's putting the plot into motion. That's all her.
That's all her.
No,
Yeah,
Buster
great
sounds like
stuff.
this. What? What are you talking about?
That's what I think he sounds like, right?
Yeah, well, he's like this, kind of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's gravelly.
He was gravelly. I mean,
Probably was less gravelly as a younger man.
Yeah, but even still, I think he had a harsher voice than one would imagine.
Have you seen What No Beer or whatever? Like the early talkies, yes.
May I come in?
Yes.
May I come in?
Yes.
Yes.
With Jimmy Durante.
Yeah, I just discovered that for the first time in my life.
That they forced him into these
they
movies.
forced him into a two-hander, three of them.
What?
He did three with Durant. I kind of like What No Beer.
What No Beer is a great title.
Vaguely
It's an
sacrilegious.
incredible
Incredible title for a movie.
It's
We
an
should
incredible
absolutely.
title.
It's three movies with Jimmy Durante that were big hits. Speak Easily, The
Yes.
Passionate Plumber,
Yes.
and What No Beer?
What No Beer though is the best title.
Yeah.
Dude, they figure it out.
Like, do they get beer?
Yeah.
It's a
gonna check.
prohibition comedy in which they start manufacturing near beer.
They do get beer at the end.
Yeah.
I will tell you that beer becomes legal at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And they start drinking beer, and then Jimmy Durante holds a beer aloft to the camera and says, "It's your turn, folks." Basically saying to the audience,
Yeah.
let's all drink. This shit's over with.
Yes.
Of all the completely random duos that
Oh,
could be imagined, it's like they had
bizarre.
Because Prohibition
Two-
literally ended the year it came out.
two
What's up?
different bingo balls full of
Yes.
up and coming stars and declining stars.
Yes.
So,
Incredibly.
like Jimmy Durante and Buster Keaton.
And just completely incompatible sensibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something I find interesting about those movies because you're just like, well, this is just such a horrible comedy team, but the two of them are funny individually.
But they
Of
just
course.
have not much chemistry together.
None.
Sure. Jimmy Durante had the schnoz, right? He would always talk about how big his schnoz was.
Schnoz is very big.
Right.
Yes.
The schnozola.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was
And
a talker. He was a gabber.
He was a talker, and you know who wasn't? Buster Keaton.
Wasn't much of an actor, and he wasn't much of a physical comedian.
He wasn't much of a sound actor. He was a great actor.
Yes.
In his way,
Yes.
obviously. He's a great performer.
Yes.
But I don't know.
But he wasn't a very emotional actor.
Right.
No, he was a character.
performer,
He was
yeah.
a character. Buster Keaton was a great actor and a terrible speaker.
There's a
When
Yeah,
I heard him
sure.
speak,
It's kind of bizarre. Yeah.
it was not merely uncanny and unnerving,
Yeah.
because his voice to me sounds like this weird complaining honk.
Interesting. Yeah, there is something bizarre.
There's a rasp to it.
But there's something kind of sour to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I see his face,
Yes.
it's full of depth.
Yes.
And I just think of his voice should sound like the bottom of the ocean.
You should sound like Mandy Patinkin singing.
yeah, for example.
Yes.
It should sound like
Smooth.
Mandy Patinkin singing.
You should
Yeah.
sound like Mandy Patinkin singing.
Okay.
I just didn't, the voice sounds, and this is nothing against, it was his voice. What could you do?
Nothing.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it sounded so
Yes.
pedestrian compared to the depth of emotion
Uh-huh.
that would be conveyed by his face.
Yes.
Even in those talking pictures, and then in also the talking pictures.
Yes.
It felt very awkward to me because his timing still seems to be based on silent films.
Yes.
So he'll just sit there and react for a while,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he'll open his mouth 5 minutes later and say the line.
Well, what's funny is What No Beer has
What?
one
No
incredible
Beer?
sequence, which is basically a sequence he's reused a couple times in his career. But there's a bit with him trying to fit into a voting booth with a large guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's
sounds
just
funny.
him having to share the space with this other guy. And it's a lot of fun. But you're like, oh, right. It works when the movie splits him up from Durante and puts him in a situation where he doesn't have to talk at all.
Right.
Spite Marriage, which we'll get to next week, when he started with MGM, where they were like, come on, these aren't silent anymore. he still was trying to thread this needle of like, can I do like Mr. Bean style comedies?
Right.
Can I
like,
speak an absolute minimum?
Right.
People around me can talk. There is sync
we can
sound
have
in
music,
the movie.
we can have sound effects, right?
But
yeah,
my
yeah.
character is not a talker by nature. But yeah, that's it does throw things off.
He's a total genius, but he's not there for verbal repartee. Ha cha cha.
No, and Ben made a good point, which is like where you were sort of asking me, you were like, so he like did do patter. He like comes from vaudeville. It's not like
Yeah,
he didn't
right, he had to
know
talk
how
on
to tell a
stage.
joke.
He had those skills. He
Right.
did it for many years, like since when he was a little kid.
And when he does verbal comedy, you're like, he does understand where the joke is. He's a good performer,
Yeah.
but it breaks the persona.
It's just one of the many humiliations and tragedies
Yes.
that befell this incredible creator
Yes.
that he had to, the circumstances were such that he had to speak in order to make money.
And leave the talking to us. That's if we've learned anything here. This is the place to talk
That's
on a
right.
podcast. Listen, this is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies. Directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce, baby.
Yep.
It's a mini-series on the films of Buster Keaton. It's called Podcast Junior. Today we are talking about one of the two movies that gave this miniseries its title,
Okay.
Steamboat Bill Jr.,
Yes.
and also talking about College.
College.
Right. And these are his last two Buster Keaton Productions films. These are the last two films in the original sort of blank check run of Mr. Skank has a foot in the bill, and you can do anything you want. You have complete creative control and autonomy. No one can rein you in.
And how
And
you pronounce his name? Mr. Skank?
we were corrected on this. I thought it was Shink,
That's what I would have thought too.
but Dana said it was Skank, right?
Mr. Skank.
Skank.
Yeah.
Skank.
Yeah,
I'm
this
sorry I
skanky
missed that.
motherfucker. Our guest today is himself one skanky motherfucker.
Hello.
He's a dear friend of the podcast and of mine and of ours
Oh.
and of America's.
Aw.
Scucks.
Scucks.
Up here, streaming now on Hulu.
I'm not available to promote any WGA contracted productions.
Oh, can I promote
You certainly may.
Okay.
You can talk about whatever you're watching on streaming or television.
Dicktown? Also on Hulu still? Nodding
This is a fact.
silently?
This is a
Okay.
fact. Yes.
Vacationland is available in paperback.
Vacationland is available in paperback.
Okay. And of course, the hosted the Judge John Hodgman podcast.
Judge John Hodgman.
Gentleman
podcast
John
on
Hodgman
Maximum.
back on the
Gentleman
show.
John.
Yes.
How do you do?
We were trying to fill this last slot, and then I went, wait a second.
Why not Gentleman John?
JH.
He's a foppy weirdo.
I said Gentleman John.
Let
He
him
likes
come in
Buster
with his
Keaton.
diamond tip cane.
He's got radio voice. Anyone with radio voice probably likes Buster Keaton.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes.
Right?
I do
Yes.
love Buster Keaton quite a bit.
But a fan of the old stuff.
Yeah, because I'm very elderly,
Yeah.
as we established
The
when I came
simpler
in.
times. Yes.
Simpler times.
Ben, you had a question for John.
Yeah.
What's the question,
I
Ben?
wanted to ask John, just what were steamboats like?
Very smooth ride.
Mm.
Very smooth ride.
Were they
Because it's very
really?
still waters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, right.
What were the snacks on board? What were the
Uh,
snack situation?
mostly sarsaparilla
Oh, okay.
and Welsh rarebit.
Well, sure.
Pickled
about
eggs?
that.
Pickled eggs?
Pickled eggs,
Yeah.
all kinds of different pickles. And then there would be a poker game.
Mm.
And if you got caught cheating, you'd be thrown into the
You'd
rotors.
be thrown right in.
Sarsaparilla is like it's kind of like a root beer,
Like
right?
a root,
yeah,
a root
yeah.
beer,
I
yeah.
don't know if I've ever had it. Is that something that gets sold these days?
Surprisingly, there's no artisanal spot in Brooklyn making
Yeah, you'd
sarsaparilla.
think there would be.
well,
right?
Yeah.
but here's the thing. Unsurprisingly, you go to any comic convention of a certain size.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's one company always or there are a couple rival companies that all do this that have like a booth that looks like an old-timey saloon
Sure.
Mhm.
and you
sure,
can
sure,
buy
sure.
an old-timey mug and get sarsaparilla refills all day.
What?
What?
So
Yes.
it's just root beer,
Yeah.
but it's just
But it tastes
okay.
like
Or
more-
birch beer or whatever.
Yeah.
Birch beer or root beer? Let's go around the horn. Ben, birch beer or root beer?
That's tough. I'm going to go with birch beer.
Mhm.
Wow.
Okay, go to David next
I'm-
because I should be last.
I'm going root beer. I don't drink a lot of birch beer. I'm going to be honest with
No.
you. That's a rare confection for me to be. But yeah, no, I like root beer.
Okay.
Root beer's great.
And Griffin,
Oh, who, me?
Yeah.
What's the question?
birch beer or root beer?
Neither.
What?
Wow.
Both are trash.
No,
Is my
it's not
opinion.
trash.
I don't like either.
Correct answer is birch beer, but why do you think that you
Correct
don't
answer
care?
is birch beer?
Absolutely.
It's got-
It's spicier.
Spicier.
But it's like at a certain point,
Foxton
I'm
Park
kind of
birch
like,
beer?
I was looking to be refreshed here.
Yes.
And now I'm like,
I want to be slapped.
my mouth tastes
I
like
don't
wood
drink-
slurry.
I don't drink a lot of soda. I want to be slapped in the face.
Yeah. See, both of those sodas feel like
I like
work
what's
to
that?
me.
Sprecher's
Sprecher's
root
is
beer.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
those,
nice
they're
root
all
beer.
kinds
What
of
is this,
strong.
suddenly a Fizzy Boys episode?
Bring it back.
Fizzy
You heard me,
boys.
Gethin?
Fizzy Boys.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Let's
no,
move
it's
on.
fine. Please.
Sarsaparilla.
John, it's sarsaparilla. I feel like when I had sarsaparilla at some ye old comic convention.
Sure.
That's as strange as Buster Keaton and Jimmy Durante being paired together.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, at Comic-Con, you're always going to have an old-timey saloon.
I'm telling you, people are going to say, I know what he's talking about.
I
There's
believe you.
always a fucking booth that looks like a giant oak barrel.
No, I believe you because not to characterize Comic-Con attendees a certain way,
Read them for filth.
but they are the types who are kind of like, rather than drinking alcohol for recreational pleasure, like many red-blooded Americans, instead they want to overpay for some kind of like fancy pants
Affectation.
non-alcoholic
Yeah,
soda
right.
served by a guy in suspenders.
Yes.
So they're gonna be like, "Thank you, sir."
And they're also wearing suspenders. as
Everyone's
they
wearing
drink.
fucking suspenders. I don't mean any, disrespect to suspenders wearers out there.
Yes.
The suspenders all the way down.
Yes.
Yes. But John, I said, do you like Buster Keaton? And your response was, he is my favorite.
He is my favorite. I love Buster Keaton, and I bonded very early with Buster Keaton because
You were childhood friends.
we grew. Yep, we were on the vaudeville stage.
Weird bit for us to be doing that. John Hodgman is 125 years old.
He said we bonded early on.
I know, it's funny. No, it's funny. You do the joke. I'm just saying, like, it's funny that this is
Yeah.
a motif of our episode now.
Sure.
Yeah, I grew up in a town called Brookline, Massachusetts.
Heard of it?
Where there is a movie theater called the Coolidge Corner.
Yes.
A lovely, wonderful theater.
You always shout it out.
And I worked there
Mm.
for a number of years.
I don't know that I knew that.
Yeah,
What'd you do?
I did it all. I concessed.
Ripped
I
tickets.
ripped. I ticket ripped.
Yep.
I took the money. I counted the money. Stole the money.
Oh.
I didn't project. That's a union job.
Yeah, and that, especially back then, that's
Yeah.
quite a technical job.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Harry Friedman.
Mm.
He was.
Got it, Harry.
Yeah, and there's a number of other projectors, but no, I ran the hokey cat over the carpet. That's like a little carpet sweeper.
Yeah, I have one of those to this day.
Ran the
Really?
hokey cat over the carpet. Does sound a little naughty.
Well, no, that was my vaudeville show.
Sure.
Want to come home and run the hokey
Yeah,
cap
why don't I
over?
go back and run the hokey cat over the carpet?
Okay, so you did it all at the Coolidge Corner.
I did it all,
which is
and
a
I
lovely
did it
thing.
all at the Coolidge Corner, and it is still there on Harvard Street in Brookline, Massachusetts. You should go. Back in the day before I worked there, when I was but a affected, pretentious preteen,
Mm-hmm.
they had a lot of repertory art house movies,
Mhm.
and they would do runs. I don't know if you understand the concept of filmographies, but
No.
they might show all of the movies of one director. for
All
example.
movies exist in a silo only to themselves.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I guess
In my
they must have had. I guess they must have had all the Buster Keaton movies in the basement
Mhm.
because they would do a Buster Keaton run. It felt like every other month.
Sure.
And he's
They would just show them all.
He's well liked.
It's an
People
easy one to
like
just
Buster
sort of
Keaton.
dust off, put them all up again.
Especially
Yeah.
what are we talking about? What years are we talking? We're talking the 90s, the 80s. Like when is this happening?
It would have been probably the 1928 or so. Who's seeing them
They were
first
doing
run?
Buster
Fresh.
retrospectives. The guy's fucking 32 years old.
They finally hit Brookline.
No, I mean this would have been the so I would have been 11, 12, 13, so the early 80s.
Mhm.
You were working the theater at 11?
No, I worked there later.
Oh,
I
okay,
worked
okay.
there
First
once
he
I was
sees
in
the
high
films.
school and college.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, child.
What happened in the
Coolidge Corner?
Yeah, no, but they would show lots and lots of old movies, and they showed a lot of Buster Keaton, and I would go and see them.
You take the green line, I assume.
I would take the green line. I would take the C train.
C.
Yeah,
The
that's
C.
right. That's right.
Wow.
Goes to Coolidge.
Yeah.
I love subways everywhere.
I understand.
I love subways.
I understand. I
Near
understand.
and far.
Yeah. I was just like, wait a minute, is the new bit that you grew up in Brookline?
No, but a lot of, as you may or may not, a lot of my family lives in Boston. And I've
Gotcha.
spent a lot of time in Boston, including a wonderful summer once where I interned at the Boston Phoenix. The now
fully
departed,
defunct completely.
yes, much like the Village Voice. But
absolutely.
back in the day,
And that was my alt weekly, and I listened to WFNX, their radio station, which was their alt radio station. Anyway,
you're an early convert.
Yeah, and so I would go and see everything there, and I loved Buster Keaton a lot. And what I remember at the time, so this probably was when I was like a fresh person in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to see it, and my memory is that Valerie Gintis's dad was the one who explained to me the sad trajectory of Buster Keaton's.
He was on top, and then the talkies came in.
They put it all in context for me. It's like Buster Keaton was arguably as talented and famous, if not more talented, than some of the others.
Yes,
Charlie Chaplin, not my favorite.
Charlie Chaplin has been bodied on almost every episode of this miniseries.
I like him.
I do too. I am.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify.
I don't want to.
I'm a big fan of his personal life. I'm not crazy about the movies.
I also like
separate
Charlie
the two.
Chaplin. I think there have been some listeners who've been a little like, excuse me, like Charlie Chaplin is a very important canonical director.
Of course,
and absolutely he is.
Of course.
He has never really been my guy.
No, he's not. No.
Yes.
I watch his movies
I'm not
and
surprised
understand
that
how
this has
important.
been coming up over and over and over again.
Obviously,
So
he
I
is
won't
the
dwell on
great,
it.
whatever. He's the great.
He's the
figure
little.
of
He's
this
the little
period.
tramp.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He was
Commonly-
playing that guy the whole time?
Yes.
Commonly known.
No, because my favorite movie star, of course, is Little Tramp. Love that guy. That guy's great.
Yeah, no, that's Charlie Chaplin.
I
That's
thought you
actually
meant
Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin. I thought he was just like Monsieur Verdoux and like the Great Dictator. That was it.
You thought he was the stuffy guy the little tramp always fucked with.
Well, Charlie Chaplin,
I understand why he makes all these movies, casts himself in the most boring role.
Yeah, exactly. What a
look,
weirdo.
by the time I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and readers of Vacationland, now available in paperback, will know this, was that I was a cardigan-wearing weirdo
Yeah.
who was bringing a briefcase to school
Yeah.
and was intent upon leaping over sexual adolescence.
Right, you were just like, I'm going to barrel right to 55.
Just going to skip it to become the gentleman bachelor that I was destined to be
What
forever.
was in the briefcase? Like your homework?
My papers.
Like if like your teacher was like, hey, do you have that paper? You're like, click, like,
well, I think I have it here in this folio. Yeah, no, I was a fan. I was a fan of office products.
Hey, sure.
And that was what I used
They
instead
keep
of a
things
backpack.
organized.
Instead of a backpack, I brought a briefcase to school. It was a soft leather satchel,
Yeah.
and
your fellow students, they respected you for it.
I was liked by everyone I met.
I'll say this. I was.
Brookline was a weird place.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. I was.
You did all right.
I was so because I also had very long hair.
You posted a photo recently.
Yeah, and I wore a Doctor Who scarf.
Yes.
People didn't know how to get at me.
You were too.
Right. Do you know what I mean? Like,
You had kind of flooded the zone. People were
like it was just too much. Like just leave him alone.
John, I have always thought about
Doctor Who is
you.
also too niche to be made fun of for in America in
Yes.
the 70s.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like
Yeah.
no one's gonna be like, you love that fucking nerd. And what is he exactly? Is it a police box or a phone box? I don't understand. What is a police box? Sorry, go on.
See, John, I've always thought of you as a man of honest eccentricities.
Yeah.
They do not strike me as
It's not affected. You're saying.
yes,
Yeah, sure,
right.
sure, right.
I
No one goes to school in a Doctor Who
When I-
scarf
when I
as
was
a
a-
bit. Like
I was,
that's
when I was
right.
about 13, I decided I would sit down and read the plays of Athol Fugard, the South African dramatist, and that was an affectation. At that moment, I'm like, this is not.
this is what I'm saying.
This
you
is-
you
this is
posted
not
this
for
photo
me.
recently,
Yeah.
and I always just
Oh, yeah.
assume when you would tell these stories about being an ostentatious teenager, I'm like, he's being self-deprecating. He probably wore it as well as he wears it now. And then I looked at this photo and I was like, I know exactly who this kid was.
Yeah, I think I had long hair, and this. I don't remember who took that photo. How?
You posted this on Instagram recently.
No, I know, but someone else from high school posted it.
Okay.
Sure.
From my high school.
Well,
I don't
you
remember anything
had
about
It's a
some
yearbook
photos,
photo, I think, or
assume.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm wearing a skinny tie and a jacket. That probably was like a school dance outfit.
Oh yeah, look at you. You know, you have a bit of a Doctor Who about you.
I was very Hoovian. Tom Baker was
Yeah.
my guy.
Yeah.
And he was cool, but in his way.
He was cool and definitely a gentleman bachelor. Sexless.
That's the thing. The Doctor Who's
Oddball.
were all sexless until the reboot.
until they rebooted.
They had to be a little sexy.
But then they went to Peter Davison, the next one,
he
who
was sexier.
I knew from watching the original All Creatures Great and Small
Bit of a heartthrob.
with my mom and dad, because I was an only child, and that's all we would do is just sit around and eat dinner on our laps and watch public television.
Right. He's
And
the
St.
fifth
Elsewhere.
Doctor, right?
That
He's the one with the celery stalk.
He had the celery stalk, and he
Yeah.
was wearing, and even and
But the
he was
celery
he was
stalk-
wearing like a cricketing outfit.
Yes, he had
The celery
And I
stalk
was
always
like-
struck me as like, we need to put something really silly on him, because otherwise this guy's kind of just handsome
He's
and
kinda
normal
just a
looking.
good
Yeah,
looking
that's
guy. Sure.
when I turned off. That's when I
Yeah.
Oh,
turned
you
off
didn't like
Doctor
him?
Who, because I was like, too sexy for me.
Right.
But you should
Too
have
hot.
just clung on and gotten to Sylvester McCoy or whatever.
Yeah, no, I really
Where they're
lost.
like, we're
the
going
plot of
to
Doctor
cast
Who.
a
I didn't-
grouchy toad as this guy. And the BBC was like, enough. You're cut off. No more Doctor Who's.
So yeah, no, I would wear a cardigan for an evening and go to the movie house, as it was called then, the Cold
Yes.
Corner Movie House.
Sure. The pictures.
And see these things. And maybe it was John Wolfe's father, actually. I think it might have been. I may be conflating the weird and wonderful dads that I got to know through my friends, who talked about how Charlie Chaplin retained creative control,
Okay.
and
Yes.
Buster Keaton lost it, and
Mhm.
kind of lost everything as a result.
Mhm.
And I had always heard the story was, what I remember for a long time was that he didn't retain ownership of his films. But it wasn't that. It was that he gave up. Like, he stopped making films for himself and he started working for
He
money.
signed a deal with MGM, but also, I mean, didn't we find this in JJ's research from one of the earlier episodes, that he never actually really owned serious stake in Buster Keaton Productions?
No, because
It was a
Skank
company that was founded for him by Skank.
He got
Right.
skanked.
He got skanked pretty
skanked
hard.
real hard because
Right,
Skank
maybe that was
eventually
part of it.
signs a deal. Initially, they're being distributed by Metro, which is associated with the MGM
Right.
at a certain point. And then Skank signs a deal with UA,
Right.
United Artists, in its fledgling Charlie
Right.
Chaplin, Mary
Right.
Pickford, those guys.
Please don't mention that name again.
Sorry, Charlie Chaplin, Little Tramp.
Mary Pickford is fine.
She's all
Sure.
right. Yeah. And who was the other one? Douglas Fairbanks, I
Yes.
think. Yeah. And that's, those are the last ones. These ones we're watching were all United Artists.
Yes. And same with General Navigator College, Steamboat Bill Jr. Am I wrong about this? Or the 4 UA ones?
I have to look it up. Battling Butler was not General was. So
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But, yeah,
then
so
of
he
course,
had
and
this-
then real
yes.
MGM, like he's actually being signed like as a company player by MGM for the
Right.
the
And
latest.
it was a classic, no, we want you to do your thing.
Come aboard.
Right.
Come aboard.
Right.
We'll play it in the space.
Yeah, and he makes. I mean, we'll talk about this all next week, but he makes 2 more films kind of his way, and one of them he's already starting to get bent out of shape.
Right.
And then they start going, "We tell you what you do.
Yeah.
You do Jimmy Durante movies. You do a film like this. You do a film like that." And that's when I think he, really kind of
What
wallowed in depression.
Whatever the case, John Wolfe's father, or
Mhm.
Val Kintis's father,
Mhm.
framed it as a tragedy.
Yeah.
And that was music. That
Right,
was
you
a
love
sad
that,
music
Of course.
to the ear.
It's
Hodgman
so,
big.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's like, oh, this guy, there was one guy who went straight to the top,
Mhm.
and this guy was a flawed and failed. He was failed by others,
Yeah.
underdog, and that was immediately. It's like, oh, that I'll watch him for the rest of my life,
Right.
and that probably framed all of my intake of Charlie Chaplin, even
Sure.
at the Coolidge, because I was always like, that guy won. Buster Keaton lost in this cosmology. And I do find Charlie Chaplin to be a little bit mawkish and sentimental,
right. I
whereas
understand.
Buster Keaton is funnier and I think more deeply emotional. And the other thing about Buster Keaton is that, he could also play a foppish, affected
Yes.
creep.
incredibly well.
And in all of his vulnerability,
Mhm.
which you see, it's all over his face. The fact that they call him stone face I'm sure it's been discussed. It's like, it's a crime to say that.
Right.
He's one of the best actors of the face of all time.
Yes.
Like, there's
Incredibly
so-
emotive. Yeah.
Totally. And it's like, for all of the vulnerability and the sweetness and the
Yeah.
yearning that he can convey in that face. He's equally good at conveying disdain,
Pomposity.
condescension,
Yes.
disgust at other people, and that's all my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yearning and condescension.
Both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
I think also, I mean, I
It's
feel
the
like
coin of the Hodgman realm.
read some quote to this effect, but I think it also pissed him off that as his creative freedom was taken away and Chaplin remains top of the world, Chaplin's output slows down so much.
That's the thing.
And
Chaplin
he was just
only
like,
makes a couple more movies.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's like 20 years of his life where Chaplin's like making 3 films. And he's like, I'd be making 4 a year if they'd still let me, you know?
Because it's City Lights and Modern Romance that are the ones Chaplin is
Modern
making in the
Times.
30s. Modern Times.
Yeah.
Not Modern
Modern
Romance.
Romance is one of the funniest
Albert
movies
Brooks
of all
movie.
time.
Very good movie.
Yeah.
No, those two where he's making them out of step with he's
Correct.
making silent films for a talkie generation.
Right.
And those are 2 great films.
And that's exactly
and
what
they are
Keaton would have
sort
loved
of
to have
very interesting. Right.
kept doing.
And they're obviously made at a very high
Yes.
production scale. And then he does Great Dictator, obviously, which does
Right.
talking.
Great Dictator,
And that's it. And then Monsieur Verdoux is like years later, and that's after he's
Limelight.
fled the country and Limelight.
and then the Brando one.
And Keaton's
Countess
in
of-
Limelight, isn't he?
Keaton's in Limelight.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's not in it enough, right?
Yeah.
That's how you put it to me. It's
Well,
like
it's
you almost want it to be a 2-hander, but that's not quite
you
the vibe.
do, and it's also
I've never seen that.
they're old comedy partners, and they reunite for final performance at the end, and it's a good extended sequence, but it should be the greatest sequence of all time. And
Yeah, but
you can
that's-
study it and go like, it's. There are a lot of theories that Chaplin sort of
Knifed him.
a little bit to the detriment of the movie itself.
Yeah, knifed him.
Knifed him.
Chaplin's a knifer.
The great Dan Stevens, author of Cameraman, now available in paperback, was saying, and I do think this is correct, the last 10, 15 years of his life were a bit of an upswing. There's the great tragedy that he did not get to maintain what he was doing for the entirety of his career, but the MGM period is really where he's just like fucking depths of despair.
But he is making successful
He is.
films, and we'll talk about this.
Many
more
of them are
next week
hits.
as well,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, but it's
Right.
not anything that he's known for, and it's not anything that he's created.
No, it's the
And
creative authorship.
when you see him
that
next to
goes
Jimmy
away.
Durante, he does not seem like a happy person.
No.
What? No beer? Sorry, I just love the idea
There
of
is in college
going to the picture window. You know, being
Oh,
like, hey,
absolutely.
one for what? No beer? And they're
Yeah.
like, huh? One for what? No beer? Like you got to hit the intonation.
Otherwise, at the Coolidge, we would never sell you a ticket unless you did the
You
whole
got to
thing.
hit the punctuation.
I'm
What's
gonna
up?
pull it up here, but I feel like in college, there's a scene
College.
where he goes to his dorm room and there's a sign behind him that says, "What? No beans."
Yes, I saw that. I made a note of that.
Right. And then I was trying to dig of like, are both of these riffing on some phrase of the time?
Oh, it could
Probably.
be like a Burma shave, like some old piece of advertising or something like
was
that.
What No Beans a thing, and is What No Beer riffing on that, or
Yeah,
both
like
of
some
them
kinda
riffing
old-
on something else?
Old collegey signifier, like a straw boater and a fur coat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. What No Beans? Someone look it up. I should have done that.
Had you seen both of these films before?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
Steamboat Bill Jr. is my favorite.
Okay.
And I was very, very happy to
Oh,
get that one.
I'm glad you nabbed it.
Yeah.
then.
And
I'm glad this has worked out well.
It
With our
always
guests
has
kind
my
of getting
favorite.
their favorites.
Yes.
and College, I had not seen because I would remember having seen it.
I
and
certainly
going,
had not seen College.
blah.
I think College is the worst of his features.
It's terrible.
I do have it ranked as the worst Buster I
It's
have
got a
watched
couple
thus far.
good things in it.
It's just weirdly formless for this late in his, like, having watched things like The General and The Navigator and fucking
Yes.
Sherlock Jr. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm just sort of like, it's weird that this is just kind of back to very, very sketchy kind of.
well, in your episode with Dana,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you talked about how Buster Keaton really prefigured a lot of cartoons
Yes.
and as well specifically Looney Tunes.
Mhm.
And the extended sequence in College
Mhm.
where he's trying out all the sports,
Yes.
to me felt like a dull Looney Tune. Like,
Yes.
one of those things where it's like there's just a series of vignettes and each one has a gag built in, and Porky Pig's going to try all the sports.
Look, I'll say this.
Right.
I made this comment in the Dane episode, and people were pushing back on it, saying that Looney Tunes are more the descendants of Buster Keaton, and the early Disney shorts are more the descendants of Charlie Chaplin.
I don't know where
Was a
people are
thing-
pushing back on you.
I said,
I mean, it's the kind of thing that will really start fights saying
Huge.
stuff like that.
No, there were the Goofy shorts of, I feel like, the 40s, the 50s, maybe, the color shorts where
Yeah.
it's Goofy like trying out
Yeah.
different sports.
That's what I'm thinking of.
that really
Because I laughed at Looney Tunes.
right, and
And I didn't laugh at Goofy.
they would kind of never do something this mundane.
Yeah.
There was that point where Goofy sort of becomes like he's your like bumbling kind of like suburban everyman.
Right.
Before they totally domesticated him into George Geef, a subject Connor Ratliff could talk to you about for hours.
I am so historically and contemporarily
Sure.
disinterested in Disney animation.
Yeah.
Of those characters.
Sure.
But you know what I mean?
That whole
I never
section-
saw Goofy. I never
Yeah.
saw Mickey
Me
Mouse.
neither.
I never saw any of those.
I don't
That whole
care.
section feels like some real Goofy shit, but it also,
Sure.
it's just that moment where you go like,
You're absolutely right, and I take back what I said because it is an aspersion against Looney Tunes, which
Yeah.
are brilliant.
right, Bugs would be more radical if he were.
I
You
don't-
place him in the Olympics?
I don't like Goofy.
He's a
Go
he's a
on.
kind of a goof.
I don't like his vibe. He's weird. What's his deal? I just don't like him. What do you think of Goofy?
I mean, he seems like kind of a dumbass.
Jeez. I wasn't gonna say it. I don't know.
That
I
would be
just don't
great.
like-
That would be
I
great
don't
if they
like those
introduced a
fucking
new
guys.
character called Dumbass.
Disney
And they-
is for the first time introducing a new character to its core lineup
I like
Dumbass,
in
and it's
60 years.
It's totally like Goofy,
I like
but
Donald
worse.
Duck. That's it.
Donald Duck's very
That's
Donald
the only
Duck's-
one I like of those
Donald
guys.
Duck's got a character.
Yeah.
Donald Duck gets frustrated. Donald Duck, is angry at the world.
And I grew up with the Duckiverse as well. That was
Right.
very hot when I was a kid. The sort
Hey.
of
Carl, the
Scrooge
Duck
and
books.
all these guys.
I take it
The-
back. Of course,
DuckTales,
yeah,
all
DuckTales,
that,
I played Rocker Duck on DuckTales, the reboot,
The new
they
one.
did,
Oh,
which was an
Which one?
incredible
Yeah.
experience.
Who? I'm sorry to not know who that is. Rocker Duck?
John Jacob. I want to make sure. I
Oh,
get this
you're
right.
like Rockefeller?
Yeah.
Were you a rival then? You're like a
Okay,
Scrooge's
I just
rival?
want to make sure I get the character's name right. before
Rocker Duck.
Rocker Duck.
Rocker Duck.
Yeah, Rocker Duck.
Donald's the one I like the most.
John D. Rocker Duck.
John D. I played John D. Rocker Duck, who was one of Uncle Scrooge's rivals, and I was the first person to ever do a voice for that character in the United States.
That's exciting.
He'd
Was
never
the only
been.
character in the books before.
What's that?
Was the only character in the books before? He
Yeah,
never
and he
made to
disappeared.
animation?
He disappeared in the American,
Yeah. Okay.
but in Italy and throughout Europe, in the
Mhm.
Donald Duck comics, he's
Yes.
still a major
Interesting.
foil
Pico?
for Uncle Scrooge McDuck in Italy and throughout Europe, but never over here. So
Yeah.
that was very exciting for me. So
That's great.
I also take back my aspersions against Disney.
Fucking
No, there's
love
stuff I
Donald
like
Duck.
there, but
Sure.
but yes. And
Goofy's
Goofy,
just like an asshole.
Goofy, look, Goofy.
He's a goof. He's a goof.
Yeah, Goofy.
Yeah, he
but
says he's a goof, but I think he might just suck.
They should call him Sucky.
Goofy's kind of like Madonna, where every 4 years there'd be like a radical reinvention, and
Right.
some of them really suck. I think they're funny periods of Goofy, but they'd be like, forget it. Goofy's a different thing now.
And
They're
then like
truly, I'm not.
What are the phases of Goofy that I'm missing here?
There was
other than-
truly this period where they were like, his name's not Goofy anymore. His name is George Geef, and he's
Uh-huh.
like fucking Ozzie and Harriet, just like white picket fence dad.
And what period would this have been?
50s?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I'm seeing this. Sure.
Like George
Yeah.
Geef sucked.
He kind of has like a bow tie and a suit.
Right.
And he's like a
He's sort of a hapless.
the 50s.
Okay.
He almost
dad.
becomes like a Fred
Well,
McMurray.
you see, I obviously
character or
watched a
something.
Goofy movie when I was a kid. I owned it, I
It's
think.
incredibly good.
Which I do remember being pretty good, but he is not like funny in it because he's just like an exasperated single parent.
Well, I
And
think
his son is like a
His son's
Skateboarder
yeah,
type.
he wants to be cool and be the rocker, and
I think what works well in that film is they take the character of Goofy as he exists in the public consciousness and use that as a projection of how embarrassed any teenage boy is of their father.
But then I think I just watched that movie and I was like, I too would be embarrassed of this fucking
Correct.
guy.
He is. It is.
He's goofy
skin
as hell.
crawling.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. It's hard to be cool when your dad is goofy. That's the tagline for a Goofy movie.
Yeah,
and
nailed
I
it.
can't disagree.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
The opening of
Pretty
that movie. Have you seen that film?
A Goofy movie?
Yeah.
No.
The opening of that movie, the titles come up and they say Walt Disney Pictures presents. And then in very formal letters, it says a movie. And you go, okay, I think I know what I'm watching here. And then, John, you would not believe what happens next.
Uh-oh.
Yahoo!
A big splat of Goofy
The word Goofy.
splats onto it.
Yeah.
Probably in a different font, right?
It would
Not
be
a
cool if the
dignified
movie
font.
was just called A Movie.
I was excited.
Yeah, you were like,
I went,
love a movie.
finally. David,
Yes.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because you're a father now.
True.
You're a daddy.
Uh-huh.
Daughter's too young to have the birds and the bees talk, the facts of life talk.
Okay.
But I have one of those deep probing questions for you.
What's that?
Where do video games come from?
Well, I've been watching this show.
Mm?
Okay.
Okay.
And it's about, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, the video game company Double Fine.
I've heard of them. They're twice as fine as any other company.
Right. Founded way back in the day, I think 2000, by Tim Schafer, famous LucasArts game designer
Yes.
from the 90s, did like Grim Fandango and things like that. He made his own company that has been making games for many years.
The Psychonauts.
Psychonauts, Brutal Legend with Jack Black.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Remember that game?
The most
It's actually
metal game
really,
ever made?
Really
Yeah.
good game. Broken Age, which if you guys have never played Broken Age is amazing. But we're not here to advertise Double Fine,
No.
which is a company that's.
People are already playing their games.
But they have this series,
Mm-hmm.
Double Fine Psychodyssey,
Okay.
that is on YouTube, that you should check out, according to me, because video games are made by normal humans like you and me.
Yeah.
That's
actually, they shouldn't use me as an example of a normal human, but go on.
good point. But to prove this, they took a small documentary team to film for 7 years
Mm-hmm.
to capture the experiences of the people at Double Fine Productions as they created Psychonauts 2, their most recent game.
Unprecedented access.
They've got 5,000 hours of footage, apparently.
Mhm.
This is not like a fluffy piece of marketing. This is an in-depth look at like all the blood, sweat, and tears of real people making a very, very good, very, very heartfelt, very, very, independent video game.
It's like the get back of video games.
Right. They've got unprecedented honesty on display. Okay.
Unprecedented access.
This is, I would say, an industry where like you never really get to see inside the sausage factory.
No.
It's really one of the most secretive, like creative processes. So
Mhm.
you get to see all of the detail of what goes into making a Psychonauts sequel. So like not just making a video game, but making a video game that is the sequel to a very well-known video game. You know what I mean?
Covering obviously a turbulent period in world history with some fires and elections and COVIDs and some other things.
That's true.
Capturing that sort of modern office COVID response.
Yep.
How it affected all of us in our lives.
So you can watch the entire series for free with no ads right now in 4K with real captions made by a human
I like
on
that. Artisanal.
YouTube. I do
Farm
too.
to table captions.
You don't want those auto-generated captions.
No.
You want the real thing.
They're nonsense.
Go to doublefine.com/check to start your Psych Odyssey.
Bye.
Now, look, I think that what's happening here is we're talking around college because it's not that interesting.
Listen, there
what's
was something that
happening here.
really made me laugh in college.
Okay.
And you will
Okay.
understand, given the entire, everything that you know about my biography now.
Yeah.
You will know that I really loved him getting up there going, here's my talk, The Curse of Athletics.
Sure,
Oh,
right.
I mean-
it opens with that, basically.
Yeah. So he's just graduating from high school and he walks through the rain with his mother.
Yes.
No one likes him.
He's a mama's boy. His suit shrinks in the rain.
His suit shrinks because he's sitting next to the radiator
Yes.
because he's all wet from the
Yes.
rain. And he sits in his
Oh,
radiator.
I didn't realize that's
Buttons
what
start
happened.
popping.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he gets up because he is the valedictorian.
Right.
And everyone else in the school loves sports because all normal humans love sports
Right.
so much.
Right.
Mhm.
And they give meaning and shape to humans' lives.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're more important than anything else.
Mhm.
Except Buster Keaton gets up and says, I'm going to give a speech on the curse of athletics. And I'm like, I am here for
I know.
this.
I was like, why do I have like no positive memories of this one? This one's like blanked from my mind. This setup is so fucking good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're drilling down to the core of the thing, right?
Right.
That Buster Keaton does not understand the rules of masculinity in society.
Right.
Shit I could not relate to harder. And
Absolutely.
he's doing the fucking smooth criminal lean.
Oh, the
yeah.
lean
As
is
he's giving
so
this speech.
funny.
This first 10 minutes are good.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are good.
Yeah.
And they set up such a good dynamic.
You have also the bit early where like he gets rained on, right? There's all that
We were
stuff.
talking
The
about the rain with the
umbrella.
popping in the.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got some umbrella business.
Some umbrella.
But here's like the
gives
first
his big
beat
speech.
where I start to go like, does this movie have its eye on the ball?
Right.
To use some sports analogy.
Sure. Sports.
Right.
Wow.
Uh,
Athletic
he-
mind virus got you.
he walks in with his mom,
Yeah.
right? His suit's shrinking. You
Yeah.
get it. This guy under the boot of life.
Should have shrunk more.
Should have shrunk more.
Was
Yeah.
it? See,
That's
Ben didn't even
comically
understand.
small.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought it was a bad suit.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear that it
Well, it was
shrunk. It should've-
bad, but part of its badness is that it reacts that poorly to the conditions around him.
If
Sure.
you're
Wool,
wearing a
whatever.
full woolen suit,
Right.
rat time. Come
Right.
on.
But he walks in. His sweetheart, his beloved,
Right.
is
What is the
being-
name of this character?
Mary, and she's played by Anne Cornwall.
All right.
It
Mary.
is my favorite thing about these movies, and I think modern movies should bring back is not this one, but so many of them in the credits, the characters are just credited as a boy,
His girl.
his sweetheart,
Yes.
Yeah.
her father.
And he has a name.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ronald.
His name is Ronald.
Ronald.
Yes.
Yes, but
Good nerd name.
he walks in. She's being chatted up by this his romantic
Creep.
rival, right?
Yeah.
This creep, this
Oh,
sort of blue-blooded jock creep,
Yeah.
and she
Very handsome
seems-
guy, though, I have to say.
Very handsome.
Harold Goodwin.
Took him 7 years to graduate high school though.
This guy's a fucking fool.
Yeah.
She seems disinterested by him.
Yeah.
Buster Keaton walks in, looking a fool,
Yeah.
in a shrunken suit, and she's so excited to see him.
Of course.
And you're like, this is interesting. Okay. She's
He's
like,
got
she
the lady.
sees his
Yeah,
value,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Girls love the
Absolutely.
nerds.
Then he gets up and gives
You
this.
think I wasn't Mr. Popular
Of
with
course,
my
I've seen the pictures.
in my fedora and my Doctor Who hat and my long hair? I was asked out on some dates after choir practice. Go
Okay,
on.
keep it in your pants, man.
I'm just saying. I'm not trying to revise history. I'm trying to tell it.
He gets up. He starts giving this monologue. And then she just
Turns
flips
on him.
out on him.
What a betrayal.
No,
I
like-
agree.
I'm sorry. Could you define what you liked about him previously and how that was a betrayal?
Yeah. How did you not see the curse of athletic speech not coming?
Because so far, this guy, all of this seems in character with this guy as I've met him.
You
Right.
just can't say stuff like that, okay?
I mean,
Especially on campuses.
you can't.
You can't say anything on
Yeah.
campus
Yeah, but
anymore.
she immediately turns on him.
Disgusted.
No,
the
she's
the
not
line I butchered in the opening where
I mean,
she's
the
just like,
whole audience turns on him, to be clear. It's not just her. No
Yes.
one is happy with his speech.
In the world of the film.
but I get that. It's
Right.
an
Yeah, but
odd
you're like, why
decision.
is she not sticking with
What
him?
changed in her? And then she's just like, fuck off until you understand what's good about sports.
And here comes the second big betrayal.
Yeah.
He decides to be into sports.
Yes.
He goes back on his speech.
The,
All those old men on stage shook his hand.
the modern version of this movie, and I just kept watching it going like, expecting this to happen. And then I was like, oh, it's 1928. They haven't developed this trope yet.
Right.
The modern version of this movie, when he gets to college, he meets a nice girl who likes him for who he is. And he spends the whole movie pining over this asshole lady who told him become a jock or go
Right.
bust.
She's the red herring. He's not going to stick
At
with
some
that.
point,
Right,
he realizes,
Sure.
oh, the person who liked him for who he really was.
Exactly
Right.
right.
And it's like this character is weirdly both of them
Both
at the
those
same
characters,
time.
right.
She just changes her mind a lot.
Right.
But then, yes, you go like, oh, okay, this is kind of like fun structure for like a bunch of Buster shorts. Now he has to learn every sport. And then
Yeah.
once it actually starts in practice, you're like, this is not that engaging.
No.
You just put him on a new field and
Yeah.
he just does some new silly things.
And the things are
Yes.
not silly enough.
They're not quite, the bits were just not robust enough
And you
for
know,
me to
and-
really be whatever.
I mean, here's
amused.
here's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, Buster Keaton is legendary for physical comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Careful.
Kid could take a fall.
We're not a college
Okay.
campus, but you might get canceled for what
I
you're
mean,
about
you're
to say.
saying some wild stuff so far, but okay.
Go on.
Right?
Yeah.
But to me,
Mhm.
that is the broad physical comedy, even
Yeah.
though he was incredibly capable of it.
Yes.
That's the least of the appeal.
The behavioral stuff.
It's the gentle lean on the stage.
Mhm.
You know, where it's very controlled body movement. It's the funniest thing.
Yes.
Right.
Whereas running time and time again to try to jump over a high jump and just not making the jump
Right.
is stupid.
Right. That's the problem. I think this setup just becomes
Like he'll get more laughs with a side eye
yes.
from me and humanity
Yes.
than trying to do a pole vault and not making
The
it.
comedy ends at he's bad at this.
Yeah.
Right?
There's no no story or emotion
No, I think
that is justifying any of this other than we established a premise, which is this guy can't play sports, but he feels like he has to.
Right. Like, I think the soda shop sequence is a bit of an uptick.
Of course. It's the only other good scene in the
It's
film.
so much more controlled because, I mean, here's this other part of the film is he does not come for
And I'm a
money.
big fan of Flair soda jerking.
Yeah, well, who isn't?
Yeah, I mean,
and
a
let's
bit of
bring it back.
business before I get my sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
Sure.
I almost thought the fucking senior soda jerk was Humphrey Bogart when he
Looking at
came
that would
on
be
screen.
wild.
I
He
thought
does.
it was
I
him.
know what you mean. I know what you mean. He's
And
got
also-
yeah.
Before Bogart becomes Bogart,
Yeah, but you know,
he
Bogart,
played all these sort of like blue-blooded country club assholes.
but he wasn't that old.
I know.
This guy looks already like he's in his 30s
I know.
or whatever.
I'm
you
saying
know,
at first glance, I was like, "Is this
No.
22-year-old Bogart?"
I will also say, if I'm
Yeah.
a Buster fan at the time,
Yeah.
and fucking like 7 years into his career as a feature maker, basically, he's like, I'm going to college. I would have been
Well,
like, Buster,
This is the biggest thing.
you're not you're too old for college.
He looks, first of all, ancient in this film.
Yes.
And he's only 32, but he looks
Yeah.
like an old man.
I mean, the
Yeah.
guy-
But
talk about City Miles. Yes.
Also, this kid's jacked. This kid's in incredible physical
Incredible
condition.
physical shape.
That's the other
Yeah.
reason you can't believe it. When he's out, he's not jacked. He's not like huge.
But he's got like a swimmer's body.
He's sinewy.
Yes.
He's
Yes.
obviously very capable
Mhm.
at he's probably the most gifted physical human being on that field.
Yeah,
Yes.
he probably would be good at athletics.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. Well, he's
Like-
small. He's slight.
He loved
He's a
baseball.
little-
This is the thing that we're talking about. All he did in his downtime was play baseball.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it was this movie or Steamboat Bill Jr., but one of them got delayed. The production got delayed because he was playing baseball like the day before they were supposed to start filming.
Broke his nose or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. He was like, he loved baseball, and his friends were like, he could have been a professional baseball player.
He's
I
so
don't doubt
short.
it.
They're wow. He's too short.
He
They
had the
have a whole
ability.
they have a whole spot for that kind of person on
Yeah.
a baseball
Sure.
Eddie Goodell.
course. Yeah, the shortstop.
Yeah. It's David,
I
the
know
shortest of
sports.
the stops.
Yeah, on the baseball pitch or whatever, they
The
have a
little guys
shortstop
only.
area.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
a second baseman.
We should, I mean, I don't know how much.
I was a third baseman.
That's a very tough position.
Yeah, I sat in the stands with the mothers.
With the mothers.
I did. We caught up on a lot of
No,
things.
no, I know. There was always that boy. I had a friend, George, in
Mhm.
elementary school, and he was that kid.
Yeah.
Who would just hang with the moms, you know?
Yeah.
Not even in athletics, just in the playground, just
Sure.
generally. Yeah.
I was very interested in
Can I
what
get you
movies they had seen.
Yeah.
I'd make them
You
describe
know,
the plots of R-rated films.
We're all out here picking our, which Power Ranger, we
Yeah.
all are. And George is, catching up with the moms.
Yeah.
but you were saying Soda Jerk.
Surgic. No, that sequence is so good because it's more the Buster is best is so good at setting up multiple points of tension and stakes, right? Of ways he can fail and how he can overcome it and all of this. And what we're talking about is like these sequences where it's just like, here he is, track and field, he's gonna do it wrong.
Right.
And the stakes are he's trying to get good at this.
Right.
But it doesn't really feel like there's more surrounding, right?
Right.
And I don't think much of this woman who's so quick to discard him. I don't care that much about him impressing her.
Damn.
But like even just the soda jerk sequence, it's a job. He's got a boss now who's tisk-tisking,
Right.
right? He's got to do this right. He doesn't want them to know he's working a job because everyone else in this film comes for money. He does not. He has to work his way through college. So he has to also hide when people he knows come into the soda shop. But even just there's a nuance to he's watching this Flair soda jerk.
Yeah.
He wants to be like him,
Yeah.
but he knows he doesn't have that ability. And so he's trying to find the smallest scale tricks he can do.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's
I'm
funny
laughing
trying
about
to
it, thinking about it
see
right now.
him work through it.
Mm.
Of course, the other job he gets is the worst part of this movie.
Right.
And what I think
Unforgivable.
is so often, like, most of this movie's reputation is like, this is the only film in which Buster does blackface.
Yes.
And
In which he himself wears blackface. There's some minor incidents of people wearing blackface in other movies,
in
right?
supporting roles.
But in which he
and
wears
Navigator has
blackface.
the end sequence that's not good.
No, right.
But
those
but
are
in the
black
other films,
actors, right?
they're pretty short sequences, and they do not most of the time feel very racially pointed. You have the soda jerk sequence, which is fun, and you're like, well, this is a fun track of he needs to keep finding jobs and working jobs. I'm a little more into this than the athletics.
Yeah.
And then the second time they cut, and that sequence has this beautiful full circle thing where he at the end just takes the help wanted sign and puts it out
it right back
himself
out,
and
yeah.
walks out, right? And then like 10 minutes later, the movie just like irises in on sign wanted colored waiter, and you just go like, Jesus fucking
No,
Christ.
please. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. You're just
Yeah.
sort of like biting like your tongue for the next 10 minutes waiting for this thing to end. So then when it goes back to the sports from there, it's a little bit of a respite. But I think we're talking around here in terms of the context of this movie and like, why is he doing a college comedy at 32?
Right.
Why does this feel so much less sort of like formally intelligent than the movies leading up to this? Is that The General was his big fucking blank check movie,
Yeah.
and it bounces.
Yes,
Right.
it hadn't worked.
Yes.
He had to downside. The other thing, and I'm cracking up the dossier here, is that college movies were hot
This is what I'm
because
saying.
college was hot.
It was like the
Right.
People
safest.
were going to college all of a
It
sudden.
was
That's
the
right.
you know?
safest comedy genre he could have done.
Right.
Subgenre is
Right.
college comedy,
You got, of course, Harold Lloyd's The Freshman. That's sort of the most famous college
which
movie.
outgrossed all of Buster films by many multiples. Was so far and away the biggest of that era.
Look, The Campus Flirt. I believe
Cool.
that came up on a box
It did.
office game.
Yeah.
Brown of Harvard.
Yes.
The Quarterback.
Yes.
These are
Young-
hot
young-
college comedies.
Young Hodgman at Yale.
Right.
Do you still have a scarf?
Of course I do.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. They let me keep it.
You talk about
I am timeless. I am ageless. I did star in
of
a
course.
silent comedy
Right.
in the late 20s. Young
You
Hodgman.
talk about him looking ancient in this
I was
movie.
35.
I think more than anything, it's the same thing that you find in the later MGM movies of just he looks defeated.
Yeah,
There was this energy to him of him being like, I guess I have to do this.
right.
You know, and even though
Yeah.
he's still doing silent comedy
he put
in
his
this,
he put as much heart and thought into the making of this film as he did to titling it
yes.
college.
He's just like,
We'll call it college.
I guess this is what they want.
Right.
And then like this movie is a big hit
right.
in a way that's kind of depressing, where it's
Oh.
just like, he just said, well, like, here, is this, please, you just
Um,
want this out of me?
Yeah.
Buster goes to college. And everyone's like, yes, that's exactly what we want. Buster goes to college.
Some context here. A lot of his writers, his gag guys,
Mhm.
had moved on. Clyde Bruckman,
Yeah.
who I believe is specifically the character in the X-Files is specifically an homage to that guy.
Mhm.
The name.
Yeah.
Remember Clyde Bruckman from the X-Files? Peter Boyle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the other guys had too. So he brings on two writers who he hated
Mhm.
in classic Buster style.
Yeah.
Froze them out. Basically wrote this whole movie himself.
Right.
And also Harry Brand, who is Buster's publicist,
Mhm.
was also brought in as a writer, and that made their relationship very tense. These are all basically, this is all sort of to say like the foundation of Buster's whole operation is sort of going away.
Yes.
Like this guy,
Lots of people have their hands in.
you know, and like his classic writers have all moved on because they've experienced success at this point. He's fucking up his relationship with his publicist. You know, it's all getting a little grim.
Yes.
Um,
And James W. Horn, who they hire as the director
Mhm.
to sit in the chair, right, quote unquote director.
absolutely useless to me, Buster says.
He was this is the most dismissive he is of any of the people
yes.
who co-directed his pictures. Yeah.
Harold Goodwin, who plays handsome Buster's rival Jeff, also said that
Jeff.
Jimmy Horn sucked.
Yeah.
And didn't do anything on set. So
And
you
yet
know,
and again, this is not a well-directed film
No.
compared to.
no, it just right because it doesn't have the sort of flow of his
It doesn't have
best films.
flow.
Right.
The shots have no real imagination. It just all feels very obligatory and
Yeah.
and sad.
I kind of like the sequence.
I mean, it's got stuff.
It's got some stuff.
It's
I
got some
kind of
stuff.
like the sort of hip hip hooray sequence where they're throwing him up and it looks like he's a peeping Tom through the window. And then he starts using the umbrella to try to explain himself.
And they slow the film down
that's
because
a
the umbrella
little-
works
that's
just
got
like a
little bit of
parachute.
the filmmaking ingenuity of him actually having fun.
Hundreds of children died trying to emulate that.
Yes.
By the way, that's a little thing I got in my dossier.
It's
Hundreds of
nice
children.
to see Snitz again.
I was gonna say
It's always nice to see
this man
Snitz as
Snitz
the
Edwards,
dean here.
who is the dean here.
Oh yeah.
He plays the lawyer in Seven Chances.
Yep.
And what's the other? Battling Butler's the other one he's in.
He is in Battling Butler as
Yes.
his manager or whatever.
He's
Or the
become
bu-
our
the butler.
MVP of the Buster
Yeah.
repertory company.
He's just got a lot of face, as we.
He's got a
He's
lot
got
of
an
face.
incredible face. And you introduce him as Dean Edwards, of course, former SNL cast member Dean Edwards.
Yes, Dean Edwards.
Right. At this point, I'm sort of hooting and hollering of like, oh, great, we got Snitz in a prime position.
Right.
And I think there's a little juice when he re-enters. There's the scene where, I mean, his dynamic is more fun, where he comes in and he's like, this place is fucking lousy with athletes. I
Right.
want this to be a place of academia, of
Right.
thought.
Right.
And he thinks Buster or Ronald is going to come in and make this a slightly more intellectual
Because he's
school.
against the athletic mind virus.
Right.
Right.
And so
He's
he's
gonna smarts it up.
disappointed that Ronald only wants to do the athletics. And then there's the scene where he finally calls him in, kind of Rushmore style, and goes, why are you failing out of every class? And he's like, because I'm signed up for every fucking team. And Snitz relates to him. He has this line about like, I understood I want to be a selective bachelor, and it's why I'm still single today.
Right. Because I was
Discerning
stubborn.
bachelor, stubborn, right.
Yeah, I was
right.
too stubborn, I guess, to choose a bride. I found that
Yes.
whole. I mean, he understands that Buster Keaton is heartsick, and that's why he's doing.
And he's
this.
like, I want to set him up for success. I'm going to rig the rowing team to.
He's going to become a coxswain.
He's small. He makes sense to me.
Yes.
Yeah,
Coxswain.
a coxswain. Right,
Guys,
Ben?
okay?
Yeah. So you have this final
Dumbass,
sort of
dumbass coxswain,
Fucking
right, Ben?
dumbass,
Dumbass coxswain.
what does he say?
What does he do even? Just says row.
Just as row and apparently steers the boat.
No, the coxswain, they motivate and they
No, I
give
know.
specific instruction.
And they
like,
hold the stopwatch.
No,
I
they
think
have to
these-
wear it.
Oh, they wear.
I think
Yeah,
these days
dumbass
also
coxswain.
there's better. Okay.
Can't
Griff,
hold a
what's your
when
question?
he shows up,
Gotta
he
have
gets,
a megaphone attached to your head, you fucking dumbass coxswain.
He gets the
A
name
megaphone face.
wrong.
Don't even
Uh-huh.
get their own seat.
When
They
he
gotta
shows up to the
bring it.
team, he says, it's not, I'm a coaxial or something like that.
That would be a little.
Let me try and find it 'cause that does
Anachronistic.
ring a bell.
Yeah.
It would be anachronistic if he said I'm
That's
a
what I'm trying to remember what the word is. Yeah. It's when he tries to identify himself to the team.
Right.
But they try to give him a sleeping potion and knock him out to embarrass him.
Classic.
The coach roofies
Roofies him.
Right.
Right.
But the teacups get switched, and like
This is right when Jeff is also like basically holding her hostage.
This is the
like
weirdest fucking
that
dynamic.
we're cutting between these two things that are happening.
Right. He gets
expelled.
right.
Jeff
Jeff
the,
gets
the rival.
expelled.
He shows up
Off
to her
camera.
dorm room, which is absolutely no men allowed.
Off limits to men.
Very uncool in the 1920s to be showing up in a dorm.
So
a
just
woman's
cool
dorm. Yes.
to just show up in the first place. But beyond that, he shows up, locks the door behind him,
Yeah.
goes, I have been expelled and I refuse to leave this room until you also drop out of college.
Right.
He's like holding
Or
her
they discover us
hostage.
and she will be expelled
Right.
if he is seen there.
Right. You're going down with me.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the most convoluted cover up for what is obviously supposed to be sexual assault.
But it's also, yes, a scene that is like upsetting.
It's
like the
very
energy of it is just like counteracting the comedy of the movie as we're cross cutting to like sleeping man.
right.
Yeah.
And there at no point is he aware but Ronald aware that this is happening.
Ronald calls himself the coaxer. I found it.
I
think that's
was
kind of
trying to
funny.
find it. That
The coaxer.
It's kind of funny, but you know what?
Coaxial's better.
I was hoping for more.
Yeah.
I was hoping for more.
Dumbass coaxer.
Sorry, you were saying.
The whole sequence is between this boat race
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
that Ronald has to win.
Or else
Because-
rowing will be done at Clayton or whatever.
That's right.
If they
It'll
don't
be
win
the end
this
of the
race.
rowing
Yeah.
The
program.
school's pride
And
is
they're
on
in
the
like
line.
Old Iron Bottom or something. They're in this funny sounding
Right.
boat.
Right. Their hope is that he would pass out so that they could use the actual coxswain, but instead, because the other guys pass out, he has to do it.
Right, because they do a switch of there's a switch of the tea. One of the
Yes.
teas is spiked.
Right.
They have cups of tea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a switch that is so unimaginative. It's basically like what is it? I think Buster Keaton accidentally dips his cookie in the other person's
Correct.
tea, and then he's like, I guess I better switch these.
Yes.
It's
He
completely
just looks the wrong
like of
way.
all
Yeah.
of the ways you're gonna do a tea switcheroo in a comedy, this was the least.
But all of this feels like it has this energy of like, is this what you want?
right.
You know, there's
Yeah.
this almost vague contempt for the audience.
Absolutely.
Of
I
like-
felt really contempt.
Right. I just spent fucking like a year trying to get like every Civil War uniform stitch perfect.
Right.
I gave you the most like technically impressive extended chase movie imaginable.
Yeah.
You just want me
I
like
drove a train off a bridge as it burned.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want me to just be a dumbass coxswain?
But he fucks up the rowing, and they still
well,
win, even though
Right.
Yes,
well,
sorry.
the point is that I was going to say that I was thinking about is like there's this race that he's got to win,
Yeah.
right? And he's got to win it in order to win, because I guess that's what sports is,
Mhm.
You do have to win the race.
right? But he has
think
no
it's silly.
To be
idea
the winner.
that
I don't like
that
that.
the object of his affection is being held against her will in a
Right.
dorm room
Yeah.
till long after the race is over.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
this race is ostensibly to impress her.
Now, in another version of the movie, like, where, as you were describing, where Mary is two characters, one who's a jerk and one who's nice or whatever,
Yes.
and the nice one's being held hostage, wouldn't it be more compelling if he knows that she's being held hostage or that she's in trouble and he's got to
Right.
finish the race in order to
Right.
get
Well,
to
and
her?
he does eventually.
I mean, that's not a very good punch
but
up,
instead, they break that into two different things.
Right.
He wins the race. She's being held hostage simultaneously.
then she gets a phone call to
She
him.
calls him.
Right.
Yes.
And this is
And one of the easiest things in the world
yeah.
Back
in
then, to
1927
know where someone was.
getting someone on the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Immediate, wherever they might
Hello?
be. Yeah.
But this is a little
I
satisfying.
happen to have memorized the number over at the boathouse,
Yes.
and I hid this phone underneath my dolly.
Well, there are only 5 numbers in town.
That's true. She
Just
probably
try
spoke to the
them.
operator and said,
Right.
"Can you connect me to the boathouse, please?"
Yeah.
That's how it should be. We need to go back to that.
What?
There's just like a bunch of phones, and there's one lady.
Whoever's closest.
Yeah, you're just like,
Yeah.
hey, can I talk to the library? I'm like, yeah, there's one phone there. Yeah,
That's
you
how
can
it should
talk to-
be?
yeah,
All
back
right.
to that.
I'd like to meet a nice switchboard operator.
She'd run for
Why not?
governor.
That feels like I should run for governor?
No,
no.
he's saying my
Oh, you
less
should run for
phones
governor.
policy. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
David's platform is fewer phones, more trains.
oh, sounds great.
I think you know what? I think you could it'd be a big third party.
Nobody likes their phone right now. And
No.
trains,
and
you know,
trains are great. Everyone loves
very
a train.
lovable.
Choo
Right.
choo.
Yes,
You know, people are like terrified, like, these insane liberal politicians. They want to come to my house and take my gun out of my hand, throw it away, right?
Sure.
And that's their biggest fear.
Yeah.
I would vote for anyone who said, if you elect me, I will come to your door and take your phone out of your hand.
phone out of your hand.
I would go, you have my unwavering
Smash
support.
it in front of
How
you.
much am I legally allowed to donate to your campaign?
$3,000.
I will break your
but
phone
you
in
have to
front
write.
of
You have to write a paper check and
Yeah.
mail it to me.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would do that.
Yeah. You have to put a
Um,
stamp on it.
No, I wouldn't say it's funny, but this last sequence is a little bit
where he like pole vaults in.
exciting, where
Yeah,
he
yeah.
finds out that she's being held hostage. He
And
picks
suddenly he
up the
can
phone
do
call.
all of the things that he couldn't
It's
do
just a
before.
little bit nice of like you've set up the whole movie. Now
Yeah.
everything comes back into play. It is at least a more impressive display of his
Sure.
ability as a physical actor.
Yeah, of
yeah.
course.
Okay, but
If-
then, well, no, go
Go-
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say something about the last thing in the movie. So if
Yeah.
you have anything before then.
No, I don't have any. Oh, I did want to say that the original, the rowing skull
Mm.
that they're in is like old rock bottom or
Old
iron bottom.
Old iron bottom.
Because he jumps into the other one and which was actually an incredible shot of him jumping off the dock directly into that very narrow rowing boat
Yes.
and then drops through the bottom of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
But that original boat was called the Dam If I Know,
Yeah.
which is
Yes.
the name of the boat in the boat. That's
Yes.
all. That was just a
Yes.
thing that I noticed.
It's a big Damifino is a big running buster sort of the Damifino
running gag.
Society is, I think, the name of the preeminent Buster Keaton fan club
Oh,
in America these days.
Yeah, how I didn't get that printed out membership card into my leather satchel back in high school, I'll never know.
No, he rescues her.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, great, I'll marry you. Cut to them with kids. Cut
Oh.
to them old. Cut to their gravestones.
The end.
Kind of just felt like Buster didn't quite have an ending, and he was like, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Just their gravestones.
It's bizarre. It's
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Now,
Yeah.
what would be cool is if he actually predicted the future, right? Like if we cut to like them old, like watching JFK's assassination, and like, Jesus, God, this country's really
you want
going
to
to
slow
hell.
down and really go
Yeah,
5 years at a time and really
Yes.
call everything.
Yeah,
You know,
the reverse of the opening of Up.
right? Yeah. Like them in the 70s being like, this country is a shithole.
Yeah.
You know, like they've gotten really conservative in their old age.
Complaining about Charlie Chaplin's later films being
Yeah.
maudlin.
Yeah. It's actually set at Kent State,
It's
and they're
just-
and they're rooting for the National Guard.
What's
Another college film.
you know,
Thank you, Ben.
Sherlock
I appreciate
Jr.
that.
Sherlock Jr. has the joke where
Yes.
he sees in the movie like they have babies and he's like, what, you know.
And Three Ages has the joke where at the end it's seeing how the 3 relationships end, and it's like they have 1 million kids, they have 5 kids, they have a dog.
Yes,
He likes the ending that is, do they end up with some...
it's just really on the
It's a
nose of
true-
like, that's what happens when you get married. I'm like, yeah, I get the idea that they're
Yeah.
gonna have kids and grow old together. You
And
don't
then
have to-
die.
You don't have
Yeah.
to like show it to me.
Yeah, and none of the sequences are particularly them living in happiness. They just
No,
happen to be in the
no,
same
Also,
I mean,
room
I
both
kinda
together.
liked it.
sequences, they're like 5 seconds
It's
long.
5 seconds,
Yeah.
just fading.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it was a
getting
very
kind of excited.
it
I
was
was
an
like,
appropriately grim ending.
where are you
to it.
going with this? And it's like, oh, into the ground?
Yeah, right. The end,
Just
dead.
straight into the ground?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his worst feature.
I do think it's the yes.
If it had been a short, it would
yes.
have been more forgivable, but probably not.
Absolutely. It's also the one movie that, like, from top to bottom feels of its time.
Let me give you just a little more context
In
before
a
we play
negative way,
the box
you know?
office
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
What? No beans?
So there's this whole thing where,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, he has Harry Brand, which is like Buster and Skank's publicity guy.
Sure.
And why don't you have him write? And so then Brand apparently insisted on a credit.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't tell Buster about it. Buster sees the movie projected to an audience for the first time, and it says, written by blah, directed by blah, a separate title, supervised by Harry Brand.
Okay.
And Buster basically is like, they put this in the prints after I okayed them. You know what I mean? Like, they
Interesting.
fucked me on this.
Yeah.
Skank did it.
Yeah.
And the prints were out. There was nothing he could do. Like,
Yeah.
there was like, they'd already been distributed around the country.
Sucks.
And he was so mad about it. So again, a lot of bad feelings, festering in terms of like this movie's production. Like there's less fun stuff because he's not doing crazy stunts.
Yeah.
In the same way as the general or whatever.
Yeah,
It's not like breaking his
most
neck.
of the history of this movie is just he needed a safe hit again. He needed to make a smaller, simpler movie that was giving what he thought the public wanted. I've been digging into the
Ben just
taglines.
sent me no beans on Urban
Okay,
Dictionary.
let's pull this up.
Yeah.
When you have a lack of beans, hey bro, you got some beans. Sorry, no beans.
No, sorry, no beans.
Okay, so that's apparently
missing
the
beans.
Urban Dictionary definition
Yeah,
of
it's
no
literally
beans.
it's you want beans and someone doesn't have them, and you're like, what? No beans?
Now, that was
Yeah.
submitted by Lean With It on July 10th, 2017. Now, here's what's interesting. Also submitted under No Beans by Caroline Yixie on April 17th, 2018. A year later is No Beans when you have so many beans.
Well, that's confusing.
As
Can you
in-
give me an example?
Yeah, here's an example. Bro, I have no beans.
Just so everyone understands, Griffin just pulled out 500 cans of beans out of his leather satchel.
No, here's the best one on Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, not me with beans.
Just beans.
That feel when you have beans.
10 comedy points to both of you.
This
This entry is just beans.
okay.
And in definition,
All right,
it says
I'm gonna
beans.
cut this right
David,
off.
this was going to pay out so big, and
All
you
right,
have.
fine. Go ahead.
Well, now I need to reset it.
Yeah, reset it.
How far back should we go back?
The Urban Dictionary entry is beans.
Sure.
Okay.
The definition is beans,
Okay.
and the sample sentence is beans.
Wow. He made me reset for that.
That was funny. You got laughs in the room.
I did a search for what no
Jason
beans.
Momoa and Fast X.
I got to search.
laughs in the room. How can you tell me that was bad? People were laughing
Got
off
left in
camera.
the room.
I did a search for what no beans, and I got something from search.proquest, and a academic article
Mhm.
called "What No Beans: Images of Women and Sexuality in Burlesque Comedy." So there might be something in
Oh,
there.
it's like a
Something
But
sex
the only other hint, the only other hit that I got
Mm.
was someone's blog about this movie,
Yeah.
saying no one has ever been
I
able to
don't-
figure out what no beans
Interesting.
means. So.
Look, I mean, there's a Twitter account called Good Bean Jokes that apparently, has some great bean jokes if you want to find that. I've been Googling around as well, but no,
Yeah.
I don't have anything more for you. Okay, look, a couple things.
Yeah.
Couple things.
College, not very well reviewed.
Mhm.
Did do financially
Was
successful,
a hit.
but not a hit on the level of, say, The Freshman or
Sure.
whatever. It's
Sure.
not, it did good.
Yeah.
I wanted to shout out Madame Soltewan. If you remember
I was going to mention Madame Sultewan.
when Buster is in blackface,
Yes.
he's with a black actress
Yes,
who's
who's
playing a cook
In the kitchen. Yeah.
in the kitchen, which obviously just makes the whole fucking blackface thing all the stranger,
Right.
as it always does whenever you watch any old movie that has blackface in it, where there are also black performers.
He
where you're like,
looks
"What the
like an
fuck is
alien.
And
You're like,
she
that
is
doesn't look
saying
good.
things to him, and there is an interaction going on that is mysterious because you can't.
They're
not talking.
She was the first African American actress to sign a film contract
Interesting.
and be a featured performer. She was in movies for 50 years. She's in The Birth of a Nation. She's in Intolerance. She's in the Black Filmmaker Hall of Fame. She's just interesting. If you look her up, that's a stage name she gave herself.
It was not actually. She was not born Madame.
No, her name is Nellie Crawford.
Right.
She gave herself that name, I think, based on it's a character she had played in an old movie, and it meant that she could play any ethnicity essentially because she had
any
this
non-white other
She was
character.
putting
this exotic quote unquote
Gotcha.
name.
Yeah.
Anyway, just interesting.
I found her life to be very interesting too.
Yes,
I
you
thought
can
it was
read
very
about her.
interesting.
May I say,
Yes.
I've been looking up what the taglines were for these movies to see if I could use them in the openings, and they rarely work. But I want to read the three for these ones because for this film college because I think they're good. You'll graduate with a perpetual smile is one tagline. Second tagline,
Sounds like a curse.
it's silent.
Technically, it should be you will be graduated with a.
Okay,
Anyway,
well.
I'm just saying.
Could have used the copy editor.
Yale.
It's silent, but Buster Keaton makes college. The Scream.
I mean, sure.
I think this is the best tagline for the movie.
Okay. Well, the other two were bad, so.
And this is the best one. Hey! Hey!
That's it?
Just two hays with exclamation point.
That's actually pretty
Hey,
good.
hey.
Well, it could be like a
College.
crusty thing, like, hey.
It could be. Look, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Let's play the box office game.
Yes.
Okay. We're talking August 1927, baby. Number one at the box office. This film is opening at number 7.
Okay.
Not
Lucky
nothing.
number
To
7.
$54,000.
Mhm.
But number one at the box office. Oh, it's a comedy directed by William Kraft. Oh boy. I have no plot information about this movie.
It's called what? Some beer?
I can tell you that I don't know anything. It stars Glenn Tyron and Patsy Ruth Miller, and it's called Painting the Town.
Painting the town.
Painting the Town.
Hey.
What do you think of that?
Hats.
Hey, no, it's not that's not the tagline. All right, number 2.
Okay.
A drama.
Ooh.
Starring the legendary John Gilbert, who's come up on many of these box office games.
Was kind of the king of the box office at the time.
You've also got
It's
a
called
very
is it called The Drapes of London?
it's not called The Drapes of London, a very specific guess.
Is
from
it
you.
called London's Drapes?
No, it's not called that either. It's called
Is it
The
called Hey,
Drapery
No
in
London?
Town. It's John Gilbert and a very young Joan Crawford
Interesting.
in a
Ooh.
silent drama about a bootlegger
Mm.
who gets a society girl involved in his activities and they fall in love. The movie is called
Whiskey Town.
12 Miles Out.
12 miles
12 miles
out.
out.
Jack Conway film. Number 3 at the box office.
Mm.
It's a comedy.
Is it called? Is it called Dumbass Coxswain?
That's not what it's called. It's directed by
Goofy Coxswain?
It's directed by Richard Wallace.
Okay.
This one's boring. You guys can say some more funny names.
No.
Stars Jack Mulhall,
Oh, it's a Mulhall
Charles
joke?
Murray. Wow, who looks like a real fun guy. This guy
I think it's called.
looks like a priest who's mad at me.
I think
Charles
it's called
Murray.
A Glass for My Best Gal.
It's called. It's got a pretty good name. The Poor Nut.
Oh, well.
The Porn Nut?
The Poor Nut. The Poor Nut. Like that.
The Porn.
The
Yeah.
Poor Nut.
I
But
have nothing
Poor
for
Nut.
you on this
Okay.
movie. There's no plot description. All right, number 4 is a King Vidor epic from 2 years ago.
wow.
It has been in the box
Still.
office for 100 weeks. Starring John Gilbert. I think we actually have had this on a previous box office game.
Is it the
Oh.
original 10 Commandments?
No.
No.
It's a war film, a World War I film, starring John Gilbert.
Okay.
And you probably don't remember the title because it's kind of a boring title. It's from director King Vidor. Its name is The Big Parade.
Okay.
Big
Remember, we had
Parade.
this one
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
What country is he ruler of?
Why does he have to be the ruler?
Well, he's king.
He was the king of the box office. Ben.
King Vidor was the king of cinema, of
Yeah.
course. What was King Vidor's actual name? There's no way his name was King, right?
Good joke, Ben. 5 comedy points.
Whoa, his name was King.
Yeah, it
Really?
happens.
Good for him.
Yeah.
You have a baby and you're like,
My friend
What's up,
Amy
King?
Fusselman, who is a novelist, she has a book out right now called The Means. Her first son is named King.
Really?
Yeah, it was big. That's a
How's
big
it
swing.
spelled?
What's that?
How's it spelled?
KONG.
MATT.
Hey, this is Griffin.
Hi, it's David.
We're just jumping in the middle of the episode to let you know that in the time since we've recorded this, we listened to feedback from the Blankies, who rightfully were very impressed with Pat Reynolds' artwork for this miniseries. It's maybe his best work to date for Podcast Junior. And people wanted to know if there was any plans to make merch with this design, and we decided yes. So we are going to be selling a Podcast Junior t-shirt on our Shopify page. It's going to be a pre-order like we've done with a lot of our recent shirts, the World Cup shirt and the Flat Stanley Kubrick shirt. So if you want to order, you got to get that order in now because we're only making as many as are demanded.
Absolutely.
Anything additional to say, Ben?
No, that's it.
Cool.
Bye.
Steamboat Bill Jr., your favorite.
Yes. Just the final film of the box office, Griffin, is
Young Hodgman at Yale.
is a historical drama starring Dorothy Gish, and its name is Madame Pompadour.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry if that doesn't.
No,
satisfy
I've heard of that film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it rings a bell.
Sure. I think it's a real person.
No
She
one
was the
forgets Madame Pompadour.
wife or mistress of Louis the something. One of the
Maybe
Louis.
maybe
One of
that's
those
what I
Louis.
remember.
Louis.
All right.
right.
Steamboat Bill.
Steamboat Bill
Jr.
Jr. He goes out, ends his Buster Keaton Productions run on a high note. Movie that feels like he's putting it all back in.
He is going
Yeah,
for it
he
more in
definitely-
this one.
Yeah.
And he is right. He's putting himself in risk again. It feels like physically.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, this film contains Buster Keaton's most iconic gag ever, which is the house, the side of the house falling, and him somehow perfectly landing in the window
lands over him.
unaffected, undamaged.
Well, and it's not just that. He runs to his mark and
Yes.
then it falls.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not like he's preset there.
Right. And this incredible, he's not looking, he's not glancing, he looks oblivious. And yet, if he were an inch off his mark, he would
Right.
die. He would be crushed instantly, and you're watching a big, wide master.
Now, what I heard is that it took 35 takes
And he died the
to
first
get it.
34.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right.
An early fan of
It
cloning.
kept clipping him.
Yes.
Yeah, right. He prestiged this one.
There is this, by all accounts, kind of apocryphal sort of narrative that I think was pushed along a lot by Buster's ex-wife. That he
You
was
mean his widow? The woman that he ended his life with? The younger woman that he married who became...
No, I think this is what's her name? Norma Talmadge.
Talmadge.
His ex-wife at that moment, who he had to was an acrimonious, long-term divorce.
So
It
she
was-
wasn't saying nice things about him.
She
She
was
was saying
not.
bad things about him.
And there are a lot of quotes attributed to her that have like perpetuated the narrative that he was so depressed at this point in his life that part of this whole, the end of this film, that stunt, all of that, people saying,
Right.
hey, do you realize the margin for error is really, really narrow on this? If you're off by an inch, you die. Was him being like, then I die.
Right.
That there was this belief that has now existed that he was borderline suicidal making this film, which I don't think is true.
Interesting.
It-
like that
it-
he's almost trying. He's like, well,
If this gag...
if it happens,
That-
what a way to go.
If this
Tom
gag
Cruise
had
shooting
happened...
himself into space vibes. or
Kind of.
whatever.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That has become a lot of this movie's legacy, weirdly.
If the wall fall gag
Yes.
had happened in college, I would believe you.
Yes.
Because he looks genuinely
That's the thing.
suicidal throughout
Right.
that film.
Right.
But in this film, he seems at the top of his game, and the film is full of... I don't even know how to put it. Like, I don't want to say full of life. It's a cliche, but it's just
Yeah.
like, it's alive. This movie is so alive.
It's alive, and there's this
and so creative and so human and so funny.
there's a real
It
emotional
doesn't feel like
core to
yeah.
it as
Yes.
well. I mean, he's playing a real character.
Yes. What a
And-
character, though. I
right.
mean, what a crazy
Oh,
character.
this guy's a real cut up.
I'll tell you, with that, with the beret and the
A little
ukulele
mustache,
and
yeah.
the incredibly wide pants.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
guy. This
look.
I mean, no. What do you guys say, David?
No, I was going to talk about. I was going to interrupt this bit just to talk about his suicidal.
Sure.
he was an alcoholic, obviously,
Yes.
which is a recurring problem for him, especially later.
But this
it was
is when
around
it's
the
really
no beer.
starting to rear
up.
its head.
He had this disastrous marriage
Yes.
that was costing him money
Yes.
and obviously just causing him anguish
Yeah.
in general. There's things that would have been
Yes.
weighing on him, and his
Yeah.
movies are doing less well,
Right.
obviously.
And he sees this is probably end of the road of this era of my career. I have to make a move after this. He goes to MGM right after this.
So it's easy enough to sort of then extrapolate to like, well, that's why he's a little more reckless or a little more daring. But like, it's then you have to do like 8 more steps to be like, and honestly, he was kind of trying to drop a house on his head. That's a little right.
But I agree
But
with John.
I wouldn't do what he.
But
did
I
in
do
this
think
movie.
that there is a psychological mystery
Yes.
as to how you go from college to this movie.
Right.
Right.
Was this going to be the one last big creative swing before he had already decided he was going to
Well, I can
sell
give you some
out to
context. I mean,
MGM?
obviously, the other thing with Keaton, of course, is when he's asked about these things, he's like, I just wanted a good gag for the good picture.
Right.
He's not just like, yeah, I was really fucked up.
Right.
Okay, here's some context for Steamboat Bill Jr., originally called The Long Lost Son.
Okay.
Chuck Reisner.
much better title.
Yeah, Steamboat Bill Jr. is just a joke, right? It's just a pun about a
Steamboat
song.
Bill
or
is
whatever.
the that song, which
Let's go
is
steal some apples.
whistled by
Mickey, of
right, because
course.
we erroneously said, and it's often repeated, that Steamboat Willie, the first Mickey short, is riffing off
riff
of
on
this
this
title.
But they're both.
But in fact,
riffing
they're
off
both
the same
riffing off the song,
Right.
which is very
So it's
popular
a
ditty of the time.
pre-existing song.
Yes,
I think that Steamboat Bill Jr. is a fine title.
it's fine.
The Long Lost Son feels a little banal to me. I was making.
Yeah, and the Junior is good.
Yeah,
It's part of-
you
part
love
of the
it. You
brand.
made
It's
it
part of the
part
brand.
the
I got
business.
brand.
A good Buster Junior. Yeah.
All right, so Chuck Reisner, former vaudeville guy who worked with Chaplin, worked
Mhm.
with Sid Chaplin. He had a story that he pitched to Buster about an old steamboat captain reuniting with his long lost son,
Mhm.
right? And that's what it'll be about, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got the grizzled captain and the silly son,
Yes.
right? His
A dandy.
His idea
A
is
fop.
right.
A fop.
I show up. I have a beret. I'm wearing +4s. I have a ukulele under my arm and a quote unquote.
Oh my God! You have to
baseball
now
mustache.
put yourself in the mind of young John Hodgman
Oh, you're
at the
losing.
Coolidge Corner movie theater when he's revealed because he's standing on the other side of the train platform. And the train pulls away and he turns around. And he's got that little pencil mustache. Oh, it made me. I've never felt more seen in my life.
For you, this was like seeing James Dean in Rebel Without a
Oh,
Cause.
it was
But this is the coolest guy in the history of movies.
Can I
And,
tell you?
I mean, I'm not unself-aware. I was laughing at what a
what a dope he is. Sure,
what
sure,
a dope
sure.
like.
Right.
It's such an incredible character reveal. You know everything you need to know about him in that one moment.
Yeah.
And I watched this movie last night with a person who lives in our house who's 21 years old.
Mm.
And she laughed hard
Yeah.
when she saw him. It is just
You're locked
undeniable.
in. David, what did you want to say?
Well, a couple
Yeah.
things. One, apparently, the mustache he's wearing was jokingly at that time called a baseball mustache. The joke being there are 9 hairs on each side, much like innings in a baseball game,
Mhm.
or whatever baseball
Yeah.
players. Yeah, Ben, +4s, right? Those kind of pants. They're like shorts +4 inches, right?
Yeah.
Big baggy pants.
Mhm.
Tintin famously wears +4s.
Okay.
We bring them back.
They are back.
They're
Short
kind of
pants.
back.
J. Crew did last season. They did
Really?
big pants.
Really? Big
Yeah.
pants are
Billowy
back.
pants.
Big pants are back.
But big billowy pants that come up a little short. It's the balance of both.
Right.
I don't believe that I'm going to reveal this, but I am.
Okay.
Around the time that I would have seen this movie,
Mm-hmm.
it was early days of rap music making its way to Brookline, Massachusetts. Around this time, I wrote my only rap lyric,
Okay.
and it is a couplet.
Uh-huh.
I wear white gloves like Bullwinkle Moose. I feel better when my pants are loose.
Wow.
I'm a big fan of big pants.
Look, you just send a text message to Ben if you want to cut that right out. It's totally fine.
No, I want it out there.
It's in.
want
I
it out
had
there.
to
I'm
audition.
gonna have to create a beat to go along.
Maybe
with
one
it.
of your listeners will do it for me.
I had to. I was forced at gunpoint to audition for Nick Cannon's Wild and Out
Yes.
at one point. Wild and Out. One of the reboots, and part of it was you had to do a rap in the audition. This was for Nick Cannon in the room,
Sure.
and all I ever came up with was I decided my persona was MC Cardigan.
I love it.
Thank
I'm a fan of
Kind of funny.
cardigan.
I thought it was an okay starting point.
cardigan pipe comedy.
Was that all you had though?
No, here's what I had.
Oh,
I
okay.
had I'm MC Cardigan.
Were you here to say something?
I'm in your yard again.
There we
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Visiting my cousin up at Bard again.
Oh, that's funny.
I thought that
Now,
wasn't bad.
Not bad.
I feel like outside of the Northeast,
Yeah.
the Bard reference might not score.
No.
It's kind of a, right? But like, I like it. Oh, Ben's sending me giant fit chino pants. Yeah. but
Currently
they're not
on
plus
J.
fours,
Crew.
but they're not plus fours.
I want to
No,
make it clear.
yeah.
It's
But they're cropped.
There,
though.
yeah.
it's
They got a little
giant
crop.
fit hyphenated. Like this is not cowboy fit. This is fit for a giant.
Why
Right.
am I not on this text thread?
I'll send it to you, John.
This is monstrous.
Okay, so so Reisner has this pitch. The film was quite expensive. This
Mhm.
film cost 330 grand, which is about as much as The General.
Mhm.
So that's a problem,
Yes.
obviously. Apparently this was a general problem with comedies. They were much more expensive to make than dramas, I guess just because of the amount of time it took
Gags.
to work all the gags up and all that.
yeah, maybe when you simulate a hurricane in a
Yeah.
town that you have
Well,
built.
these dramas have battle scenes and stuff, and they're not without,
Maybe when a whole building flies away, revealing a man in a hospital bed.
I mean, the last 15 minutes of this movie feel like this might be the last
realized
time.
Ben has been sending these links to our text thread with Marie,
Yo.
and Marie is just getting these links random.
Here's our group text. It's just Ben Hosley linked to No,
No
Beans
Beans.
Urban Dictionary. Ben Hosley, giant fit chino pant for men, J. Crew, and then Marie Barty. I have so many questions.
She'll
Yes.
find out.
She'll find out.
Okay, so
But yeah, the last
Wow,
15 minutes
those are
of this
big.
movie,
Those are big pants.
they're giant fit.
I like these big pants.
The last 15 minutes feel like him going, I'm gonna make this as if this is the last chance I ever get to make something on
Yes,
this scale. I'm
right,
throwing
like, let's not
everything
fuck
at the
around.
wall.
they
That is
shot
the
it all on the
and yet
Sacramento.
it doesn't feel desperate.
No, not at all.
No,
It's like so much work, but it all feels effortless.
Yeah.
They shot on the Sacramento River to double as the Mississippi, the mighty Mississippi. And they built like a whole street front. They built piers, right? The
Mhm.
whole thing cost like 50 grand. 150 people are working on it because then they have to fucking flood it.
Yes.
Like it's like all this crazy stuff is going on.
That's the kind of thing that anyone else would have done with miniatures, but for him, it's like the whole point is me coexisting in these spaces, moving through them.
And
Without trick
they had
photography.
more plans for like dramatic flood sequences that were stopped because there was a terrible flood of the actual Mississippi River that caused loss of life.
Sure.
And Buster was essentially told like, you can't do too many flood jokes. Like that's too touchy.
Right.
Like people
Too
don't
soon.
want
It was
flood
too soon.
jokes.
Yeah.
And so that's why they then shift over to Cyclone.
We only actually got clear to make flood jokes 2 years ago, actually.
Right.
It's finally
Yeah.
okay now.
So that is when they start to think about, okay, well, what are some like tornado gags we can do?
Right.
And Buster's like,
All
while,
of them.
while swigging gin, I don't know, drop a house on me.
Right.
So they had these wind machines and all. Like, I don't know, this whole
Yeah.
thing just sounds incredibly complicated and difficult in 1928. Was that the
Yeah,
year?
there's
Yeah,
the
28.
point when he's like trying to run against the wind and he's like jumping up in the air and it's like he's truly flying. And then at later points, he's literally getting rigged by
Right.
wires. But yes, here's the other thing. I mean, look at this image too, where he's like leaning in all the way, where the force of the
Right.
wind is so great.
It's bananas.
Yes. In college, there was.
Wait. The movie College or when you were in college?
When
movie
you were in
college.
college,
Okay, all right, okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
dear old Clayton.
Yes. In college, the gag where he is pole vaulting
Yeah.
is infamously one of the only gags where he ever used a stunt double in his entire career, or at least in his full-bodied age.
When he
right?
goes over the thing and then lands headfirst into the
Correct.
thing, into the hole,
And I think
into the
it
weird
was,
pile of sawdust they're all falling into.
I think it was, he had some injuries at this point, and it was like this, like, maybe I don't need to do this one. Maybe I can let someone else do this one, right? Maybe this one isn't that important for me to show my face. Versus the house gag, which has less room for error and much greater risks. If it goes wrong,
Yeah.
I think that's where I push back on the notion that he was suicidal making this movie of
Right.
like,
He's
no,
working too hard to be suicidal.
exactly. And it's like, college is him being like, I'm not willing to die for this fucking gag. It doesn't matter. Versus this, he's like, if I get it on film, this will validate my life.
It's this romantic, nonsensical concept of like, I'm going to go out with a bang,
Right.
you know, like I'm going to make the biggest movie ever. And then the last scene, I'll die.
No, it's like his passion is back in.
Yeah, he's invested in making a really good movie.
And
here.
for him, the
Yes.
stakes are, I need to be pushing it that far. Not, and if I die, it's pretty good footage. It's like,
Right.
People want to see that.
I mean, it wasn't the last thing they shot, I presume, the house falling down.
no, I don't think it
Right?
could have been.
So,
Yeah.
He wanted to live to shoot the rest of the movie, presumably.
Is there other setup, David?
No, talk about the movie. Talk about the movie. I mean, all of the stuff in the dossier is mostly just like this fucking insane, you know, shit they
We'll
did.
get to that when we get in
Exactly.
the stunts.
Yeah.
I think his father in this film is so good.
Yes.
And for how much the father relationship is so big in Buster's life, right?
Right.
And this does not
Because I
necessarily...
believe, now correct me if I'm wrong,
Uh-huh.
he had a father.
He
right?
did.
Okay,
His
interesting.
father was also a performer, failed performer, had the son very
Interesting.
quickly
Joe Keaton.
outshines.
Yes,
Right.
the guy playing the dad in this, Ernest Torrance.
It's
Ernest
really
Torrance.
fucking good.
Huge, very imposing
I mean,
and large.
when you see the thing that made me fucking gasp,
Yeah.
is the scene where he's walking around in his nightshirt and you see his feet.
Yes.
Those things are like seal flippers.
Yes.
Where you- this thing is as long as this desk that I'm sitting at.
Yes.
This guy is hugely proportioned. Scottish man, I believe.
This guy was the first man ever to play Captain Hook on film.
Yeah, there's a
The
you can
first
see a picture
adaptation.
of
He
him.
looks pretty terrifying.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
scary
I
looking
wouldn't
fella.
want that guy waving a hook at me.
But this is the kind of guy who usually chases Buster in a movie, right?
Right.
Or tries to steal Buster's best gal away from him, his
Sometimes,
sweetheart or
sure.
whatever.
Like a Jeff type.
Yeah, but like
Jeff.
a relationship with a dad is not really something he's done before. He'll have parents in movies.
and you'll have the disapproving thing, but it's not
Like,
a major...
son, you need to go do this.
Right.
That's really all they usually
They
do.
just set the plot in motion,
Right.
right? To really go like, and there's always the thing of Buster not being the traditional man in this modern society. He
Right.
is not traditionally masculine. He does not get it, right? He needs to be toughened up. He needs to learn these things. He needs to learn a
It's
proper
a
trade.
very certain kind of hat.
right.
Yeah.
right.
That
This
is not that beret.
This is the movie where like all of that energy is put into the father.
Yeah.
Who is never really like an asshole to him as
No.
much as he's just like disappointed.
Doesn't understand him.
Doesn't get him. Disappointed.
Isn't going to abandon him,
No.
but does not understand him.
And Buster wants to really prove himself.
Does he though? I mean, here's the thing that I like about this
He
movie.
wants his father's love, I would say.
I guess you could make an argument that that's a human thing to want love.
Could be made.
I think that Buster Keaton's, his character Willie,
Yes.
you know, first of all, he is waltzing in directly from the movie that college should have been.
Yes.
Do you know what I
silly
mean?
boy with
Yes.
a beret and a ukulele.
This is a
and
classic,
one of them baseball mustaches.
classic kid who has gone to college.
Yes.
And has remade himself.
Come back unbearable.
Exactly. It's like
Right,
it's such a
right.
perfect thing.
He's been there for a
And-
semester, and you're like, oh Jesus!
And they
You
don't
have,
even
like, 8
recognize
bits.
him.
right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I kind of feel like he is unbearable at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
Not in a way that ever tests your
Yeah.
affection for him, but you know, like he's here his mother wanted him to visit.
Yes.
Like he's not there to reconnect with his dad. He was told to go.
Yeah.
And he traveled from Boston to go see his dad on an errand.
Mhm.
And he's in it, but it's
Mhm.
not. He doesn't want to be a part of this world. He's much more interested in the girl, his college
That's
friend.
No, you are right. That's what keeps him in.
That's what
And-
keeps him around.
And the stakes are higher for the father, who's now got this rival,
Right.
the king.
right. And as much as, and this is the other thing, is like,
Yeah.
and you know, the father, a completely different kind of man,
Yes.
obviously, is not an insider though. Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yes,
He's
yes.
he's an underdog too.
Yes.
He's literally being outclassed by a guy named King,
Yes. Who's a much more blue-blooded,
spelled
high-class fellow.
M-A-T-T.
Great callback. But yes, no, you start the movie basically with the father as the protagonist.
Yeah.
Here I am. I'm going to be knocked out of business by this asshole.
This asshole swell.
Well, aren't sons supposed to help their fathers?
Right.
Aren't they supposed to carry on the tradition? I need another hand on the ship. He's going to come visit me. This will be perfect.
Here comes this twerp.
Right.
And here
his
comes this
shit.
twerp.
Right.
And so they're stuck with each other. So I don't think the only reason I push back on you
I think
is
you're
that
right.
I feel that one of the beauties of the movie is it takes time for Buster Keaton's character to determine I do want to earn my father's love.
Sure.
For a long time,
yes.
he's just along for the ride.
Yes.
And we'll get to the scene where I feel like that happens.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that happens makes this such a much more powerful film
But
to
he
me.
le-
That
he
they
leaves-
that they grow to,
Yes.
to care about each other.
Absolutely. He writes this letter saying, "I'll be wearing a white carnation. You can't miss me." Right.
Right.
Then you have the father and his partner just looking for everyone. They're hoping.
Rarely a more Smee looking motherfucker than that little guy who wanders around with that
Yes.
Captain Hook.
Yes. And then you get that amazing reveal as he says the train pulls away and he's facing the opposite direction.
Right.
And they're sort of tailing behind him, terrified. Like they're almost looking for confirmation
Like,
that it's not
is
him.
it anyone else?
Right.
Like, does it have to be this kid?
And there's a sequence before that, though,
Yeah.
where Buster Keaton has lost the carnation. The wind
Yes.
blows it away. And he's just terrorizing people at the train station by wandering up to them deadpan and just like shoving his lapel in their faces. It makes me laugh every time. Like, you
Yes.
see this, don't you? He doesn't know that he doesn't have the flower. It's great.
Right.
But yes, then they see his name on his luggage.
Yes.
And then they follow him around.
But
And
they
could it be
also-
anyone else?
They witness him taking out his old ukulele
Mm-hmm.
and serenading a baby
Yeah.
Right.
while dancing around, which to them is like mortifying.
Absolutely.
Right? This is the moment where they just go like, what the fuck are we going to do? What are we witnessing? And it is a very foolish act. But what I like about it is it speaks to his innate kindness.
Yeah.
He is doing something that is silly and embarrassing, but it is not stupid.
No, it's whimsical and cute.
Yes.
It's not the kind of thing that's going to get your boat working.
It will not.
I'll say that. But you're right. He's not like an imbecile. He's
No.
just a silly, precious boy.
Yes.
And of course, the dad's solution is, well, let's get you right to the barber and get that fucking thing off your face.
Right. Which Joe Keaton, his real father, plays the barber.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
The
that.
baseball
Joe Keaton's in
mustache
most of his movies.
bit makes more sense. when
Take
they,
that barnacle off his lip is the
Right.
line. Yes.
Right.
But they shave him off and then they do the tweezer to remove what I guess is the ninth man on the field.
Uh-huh.
I watched this, what's his name? Sorry. I was watching the Cohen media versions of the films, and Carl Davis did scores for those versions, and his score for this one in particular is phenomenal.
Sure.
It uses elements of the real Steamboat Bill song.
Mm.
It has a lot of great original melodies.
That's
but
fun.
the other thing I like is into the orchestration. It's a proper full orchestra doing this score. He works in a lot of the fun sort of musical sound effects of the shaving. Yes. Yes. And in a later sequence I will get to in a second. But I wanted to call that out. And
Cool.
his scores are available on iTunes.
I do a lot of sound effects for shaving scenes. I do a lot of ADR.
That's your side. But yes, they're looking for the outfit to toughen him up.
Yes. So
They're
barbershop
auditioning
and then-
every
right.
hat on him.
Right. All
You-
the hats.
You have this
What a
joke,
magnificent sequence that hat sequence is to me.
and it just speaks to he could make comedy out of nothing.
What's the gag? They're not even funny hats.
They're not.
The worst version of that
Yes.
would be increasingly funny hats.
The hats themselves are
The hats
silly.
themselves are just normal hats.
Right.
But everyone Buster Keaton is making into a joke. He's vain.
Yes.
He's self-impressed. He's got style and taste of his own.
Yes.
He goes into these weird poses. When he gets the Buster Keaton hat, he's immediately like, get that the fuck away
That
from me.
bit is incredible.
Yeah.
It's him acknowledging how humongous the Buster Keaton persona had become.
Right.
That he needs to like admit he needs to get the audience on board with I'm playing a character in this one.
Right.
Don't hold on too much to the past people I've played.
Right.
Yeah.
To the
stock
old,
type.
the old boater guy.
Right. I'm gonna
Yes.
fucking throw the pork pie
No,
hat.
no-
and
no
he sort of
pork
looks
pie.
to the audience and is like, let's not talk about that.
Right.
Right.
Let's not even let them know I put that one on.
It's so swift and
Yes.
skill and subtle. And not to disparage the amount of physical danger he puts himself in the last, quarter of this film or whatever. But this is the funniest as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it gets as funny throughout the film, but it's like the comedy here is happening through nostril work.
Yeah, truly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just beautiful.
Yes.
Still very pretty too. You know, he just has
God,
those
he's
That's
handsome.
the-
those striking
he looks-
eyes.
Right.
He looks 10 years younger in this one than he does in college. It's
Absolutely.
the difference of him having like joy.
Yeah, I think that
In
might
his
be
eyes.
too. And
I think so.
he
Yeah.
also had a lot of procedures done.
Yeah, he was fucking addicted to Botox.
Yeah.
Crazy.
At that time, but
They
it
gave him
wasn't.
the Jim
It wasn't
Broadbent
Botox at that
full-
time. You would just inject wood alcohol and bitters.
That was all it was. Your skin would just brine.
It was
They'd
just-
pickle you.
Yeah, it was just patent medicines all the way
Yeah.
down. Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Sarsaparilla and birch beer.
he reconnects with his crush at the barber shop.
Okay, and what is the name of this character? Not Mary.
His crush in this movie, of course, is called
I hate
Kitty,
right.
and her name is the actress's name is Marion Byron.
Marion Byron.
She
It was terrific.
She was at one point in her life after this movie teamed with Anita Garvin, another actress, to form a female Laurel and Hardy.
Okay.
Didn't work. They just did 3 shorts and it never took off.
She
would
had
be
more
really
of a
interesting
comedy
to see.
background
Yes,
than most of
yes.
his leading ladies.
She was known as,
a vaudeville act.
And I
Right.
believe she was like
She had the nickname Peanuts.
Her name was Peanuts. She was 16 when they filmed this movie, which is pretty wild.
That is crazy.
I'd
She's
rather
also
be
very
nicknamed
small.
Peanuts than Poor Nuts.
That is true. Yeah,
Mhm.
she's tiny. That's why they called her Peanuts.
And she's 16, you're telling me.
And she's
16 years old.
Yes.
Wild.
But it's wild because Buster looks 10 years younger in this, and she plays older than she is. You'd guess that both of them were 24,
They seem very well matched.
and
Yeah,
instead they're
he-
like 16 and 33.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. He
Right.
seems
Yeah.
he seems younger.
Yeah.
All right, so he's in
the.
the okay. He's in the naval uniform now.
But you're right. This is what gets him invested, right? She's also here,
Right.
back from college.
Yeah, I can be around her.
With her father on their boat. I don't know about this rivalry. The dad puts the thing together. Having them be star-crossed lovers rather than him needing to fight a romantic rival is a fun flip on the formula.
Right.
And so his father is occupying more the role of what is usually the big tough guy who's trying to steal the girl away from him.
Right.
But from a sympathetic point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
The father's got a lot at stake. He needs to make this work. He doesn't want to be put out of business.
And he doesn't want his son getting involved with the daughter of his rival.
And that is the only thing he wants to do. It is the number one thing he wants to do. I had said, I think in our Dana episode, that I ranked this one lower on my personal Buster ranking, which is absurd. But I think also I had not rewatched this one in a while, and I had not rewatched The Navigator in a while. And I conflated them a lot in my mind.
Both films.
Boat bits.
Right,
On
but
boat
Navigator
bits.
is much more boat bits. It's what are the bits that come out of being on a boat.
They're on this vehicle. There's the 2 of them as well. So it's not
Yes.
about like working a boat. It's
No.
just like these 2 idiots are on a boat.
Right. This movie is much more, he wants to fulfill the role of a proper boatsman in terms of dress and demeanor and all
That's
of
right.
that.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be a dumbass coxswain. He wants to be a proper boatsman.
Yeah. But outside of that, his main objective is get off this fucking boat, get onto her boat. He just wants to talk to her a bunch.
And he doesn't pick that outfit out. They pick it out together.
Yes.
Like, that's so beautiful. Like, they're both so out of touch.
Another bit that is so simple and is much like the hat bit where it's like the comedy is coming out of him positioning the hat 10 degrees in the wrong way,
Yeah.
right? That moment when he's walking up on the deck of the boat and all he's trying to do is just wear his nice little double-breasted captain uniform with his little hat and just walk straight on the boat, and he fucks up every element of walking in a straight line. Right? He like walks into the
Right.
pulley, he almost walks over the edge,
Yeah.
and he's just trying to maintain the air of confidence of I know how to be here.
That's that seaman swagger.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about, Ben?
Oh, sure. I
This-
mean, he's looking sharp.
Yeah.
He looks good.
He looks really good.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. And the other thing that the 21-year-old who lives in my house sometimes
Mm.
really laughed at was when he comes down and first when the reveal of the naval uniform,
Mhm.
and then Smee just handing a gun to the father,
Yes.
saying no jury in the world would convict you.
Always
Just-
funny. Pretty much always a good joke, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yes. Murder is now legal.
The idea of a jury being like, and you say he was annoying? Free to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just makes me laugh.
Fair enough.
Okay, what happens next on Steamboat Bill Jr.?
Well,
He's on the
he-
boat.
He tells her basically, she gets the note to him saying, I will be on the deck of my ship. At
Right. So
moonlight
he's
if you wanna-"
he's got to sneak over there.
Right. This is such a good bit and it's so simple and isn't like crazy boat bit shit. It's just setup, right?
Right.
Buster's been lying in bed all night eating peanuts. These other dang peanut shells all around the bed, which you think is just kind of an errant detail to make his dad angry, right? But instead, they end up being this incredible runner of anytime anyone is trying to enter or leave the room, they keep forgetting there are these fucking shells all over the place.
Yes.
Which the Carl Davis score, he does instrumentation of the shell noise over and over again, which is really, he does crunchy nuts,
That's
David.
fun. That's fun.
Which is really fun. But all he wants to do is sneak out.
Right.
His father wants to make sure he's not
Sneaking out.
because this is my rival's daughter.
Right.
You star-crossed lovers can never get together. And he's fully dressed underneath it in his captain's
Yes,
uniform.
taking off the big nightgown to reveal his entire uniform is funny. Big nightgowns are funny.
Yes.
Big nightgowns are funny.
Nightgowns that go down to the floor are funny.
But he can't get out easily because of the nutshells. The father finds him. He makes him go into the wardrobe.
Well, no, he says you get undressed, and Buster Keaton won't get undressed in front of his father.
Right.
So he goes into the closet.
Yes.
To get undressed.
Right.
But he just puts on some work clothes, right? I don't remember what happens.
He puts on a different long nightie.
Right.
And he's like, "See, are you happy?" And he gets back into bed, and then the second the dad leaves, he gets out, he takes the nightie off, he's got a different uniform on underneath. But he has that look when the father opens the wardrobe of like, "Are you happy now?"
Right. Yeah.
These things where he's able to convey something with like such an incredible.
He didn't need to speak.
He did.
He didn't need to speak.
He didn't need to speak, and he doesn't speak because this is a silent film.
It is,
It's
David.
a silent picture.
All right. There's lots of undressing business. She's waiting on the deck of the Steamboat Bill.
Well, she gets busted too.
She gets busted too.
And her father calls him a river tramp.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not kind.
No, it's a good dig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
River tramp.
River tramp.
That's you, Ben. Face it.
Face it?
You're a river tramp. Come on, you know.
Yeah, all right, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
You know, back when I used to go on steamboats,
Right?
back in those days,
Yeah.
when I was a traveling gambler
Yeah.
on steamboats,
Mm-hmm.
I knew some river tramps,
Oh yeah.
and they were fun guys.
Okay,
And you were
good.
doing
Yeah.
the Mississippi grind.
Yeah.
Okay, Griff. What else happens in
Well,
Steamboat?
try to remember how we get to the father being arrested. Because you have her waiting for him. He puts out the plank. The ships start moving.
He ends up beating up. Doesn't he assault King?
Yes.
Yes, they have the big fight. Right? Isn't that
Right. There's the whole protracted sequence of Buster trying to get to her on the boat. And then when the father catches him, and then Steamboat Bill's father goes after King. Right.
But there's another thing too, which is that the father does. Steamboat Bill Sr.
Yes.
gives up on Steamboat Bill Jr.
Yes.
and gets him a ticket back to Boston.
Yes.
And Steamboat Bill Jr. is kind of like, yeah, you know what? This didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then his father gets thrown in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he changes his mind and he's going to stick around and he tears
That's
up
the
the
moment.
ticket.
Yes.
And I was wildly struck, not only by the emotion of this moment, but the framing
Mm-hmm.
of that scene where, I mean, it was just so gorgeous. I mean, so much of this film is shot beautifully.
Yes.
It's a very
But-
good looking movie.
You know, it's this one scene where he is standing in the road, and he's looking at camera and beyond camera he's watching his dad get thrown in jail.
Locked away. Put in the slammer.
And Kitty is in the background watching him.
Yep,
And it's-
yep.
I've-
It's like here it is. It's this. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's in the foreground and she's far away. You can't even see her. Yeah.
It's so like, not that any of these films were rudimentary, but that feels so contemporary, that framing to me. That feels so emotive
yeah.
and
Yeah.
modern.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many sequences or, you know, just images that are so striking, including him standing in the doorway of when he goes to visit his father to break him out.
Yes.
Now that he's committed to his dad.
I want to talk about that sequence. Plot-wise, just because I untangled it, there's the earlier bit where Steamboat Bill Sr. tries to train Bill Jr. down in sort of the engine room, and he accidentally crashes the ship into the King.
Into the King.
So then when they're back on land after they busted the two of them trying to canoodle,
right.
the King, the father, accuses the Canfield, the ship, of being like poorly run,
Right.
unsafe.
Oh, and he has it condemned.
Wants it condemned.
Right.
So then that's when Steamboat Bill Sr. attacks him.
He loses control.
Right. This is like my favorite bit of performance in the entire movie, even more than the hat thing, is Buster has brought this giant loaf of bread.
It's very funny.
Filled with tools.
And he says, I made it myself.
Yes.
And then the prison guard turns around, and that's when Buster's like saying to his dad, essentially like, I'm going to break you out of here.
Right.
Guy turns back around, Buster's hands in the air. And he just kind of puts it on the guy and like pats him like, there you are. I just always think that's funny.
But you're setting up like so many different things here, which is his dad doesn't want the bread. He doesn't want the bread because he's like, my son's a fuck up. The bread probably tastes awful. This isn't what I want from you.
I didn't even take it as the bread necessarily tasted awful. It's just like, he's a stubborn, mad fuck.
Right. I'm just
You know what I
I'm
mean?
tired
Like-
of all your bullshit.
Yeah.
You're coming here with a fucking sourdough loaf or some shit. I
Right.
don't want your business, right? And all he wants to do is convey to his father, the bread's going to help you escape.
Right.
He's trying to find the way to pantomime it. As you said, the sheriff keeps turning around, catching him. He has to try to...
There's so much in motion here, both sort of plot-wise and
Yes.
then emotionally.
Yes.
It's so, like this one scene could be a whole film, basically.
But you get just
You know.
like 3 minutes of Buster trying to pantomime different ways of conveying,
And I
break
remember-
out, walk out of jail.
I remember laughing so hard at the Coolidge Corner when he sang that little
Sings
song.
the prisoner's lament or whatever.
And he
And
sings
then
the
he's like
doing-
kind of gesturing to the bread, just like,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
like prisoners might want this bread.
He's like sawing off his own thumb to the tune of the song to give the father an idea.
Yeah.
And then he does the little thing, the little man with his fingers running away across the bread.
Right.
And it's all in time to a song that you cannot hear.
You cannot hear, which is incredible.
But you hear it somehow all
Yes.
the same.
But then
magnificent.
Right. The funniest thing is he finds a piece of rock or something. He throws it over his shoulder out the window so that it looks like someone through a window
Well, it's two rocks.
Right. He kicks one rock next to the sheriff's foot, right? Then he takes another rock, he throws it through the window so it looks like the rock by the foot went through the window from the outside.
Right.
Tells him, look around, someone's yelling, breaking glass, whatever.
Throwing a rock through the
And then
window.
just rips the butt off the bread, shows his father all the tools inside, puts the butt back on front, and now the dad's like, well, I think maybe I want the bread,
Yes.
actually.
No.
Right.
Are we building to my favorite line?
Yes.
Okay.
He's trying to get him to take the bread. He goes over to hand it to him, right? He's holding it the wrong way. Everything falls out. This is the line, David.
Go ahead. Well, you want me
Do you want to say it?
That must have happened when the dough fell in the tool chest.
Yeah.
It's just such a funny idea that he's like, well, I was making dough, and yes, it did briefly fall in a tool chest, and
I didn't
maybe it
think much of it.
accumulated various tools.
I didn't think much of it. I
just baked the bread.
I lifted it off the floor, I put it in the oven, I baked it.
So is that a real thing though? That happened where someone
Put
escaped
like
from
a-
prison?
it had to have
A
happened.
giant file inside of a
It was
cake.
it was
Yeah.
such a trope.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like to think that it happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, everyone remembers. It's as common as what? No beans? Like everyone.
Right. A universal reference point.
Yeah.
Oh boy! All right, so he does. Wait, how does he knock the guy out again? He knocks out the prison guy at some point
Yeah.
with the loaf or whatever.
Yeah.
Gets him out.
But there's a storm of brewing.
And then the storms are brewing, and then we are basically into just a very thrilling apocalyptic sort of disaster sequence.
Mm-hmm. Which builds to him in the wreckage of an abandoned theater where he starts to do all these meta gags.
Oh,
There's
right.
the thing where he pulls the curtain and the shower comes down. He pulls it back up and he's disappeared.
Right.
And it's just on a little platform. And then his head pops up like his body, like it's disembodied. And then he cuts to the side and you see like the mirror.
Right.
That it's kind of a classic magician's
like a
trick.
magician. Right.
Right. But it's almost like him kind of pulling back the curtain and acknowledging the trickery that goes into sequences.
Right.
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 And but then also like it's almost highlighting that in a lot of the sequence there is no
No,
trickery.
he's not doing this type of shit.
right. This
Right.
is not sleight of hand. Like
Right.
he's-
This
he's-
is what my competitors would do.
right.
Right.
You know, when he leaps into the wind and is blown backwards and falls flat on his back and then gets up, that's really happening.
Yes.
Yeah, it's intense. I mean, they have these wind machines, I guess, is how they do it, but still, it's intense. Were they just really big fans? There's like the, building falling down, right? The, not the one on him, but like the big kind of fake town set starting to crumble, right? The fish palace falls in the water and all that stuff.
The
like,
library,
there's a lot of destruction.
Crumbles.
The hospital, everyone like running out of the hospital.
They 6 Liberty Motor wind machines is what they were called. The cyclone scene alone cost a third of the movie's total budget, which was estimated between 300 and 400,000.
I would have thought it was craft services.
That was the
right,
other.
Oh, right. It's the hospital
next
blows away, and then you see everyone in the beds, including him.
Yeah.
And then the bed blows away.
Yes. And then the bed blows away.
It's a good gag, but it's something like you could only imagine seeing it in a cartoon. It's actually, how did they pull that house away?
Right.
It's astonishing.
Right.
It's
And not only do you feel like I could only imagine seeing that in a cartoon, the cartoons you've seen that in came after this.
Look, everything about this motion picture is perfect as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
It's the plot is sound, the emotional core is beyond sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's visually stunning in its quiet moments. When he shows up at the prison with that loaf of bread and he's got that upturned umbrella, and he's standing in the doorway, feels like an Ingmar Bergman scene.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like this omen of death. And then you have this whole sequence, which is utterly thrilling,
right?
Utterly astonishing.
On every it's an incredible action sequence. It's a credible feat of technical filmmaking. There are incredible gags within it. It works as special effects, as actual thrilling suspense, as comedy.
And it's in service to the core story ultimately because the father is in jail and the jail is flooding.
Yes.
And he's got to save his father. And so it's not just stuff happening, right? It's a true impediment to the emotional journey of the story.
Yes.
And it's also bananas and incredible to look at. This film was not a hit.
This film was not a hit.
Not at all. No.
So here's my question: what the fuck is wrong with people?
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with people. There's a point in this movie where he grabs onto a tree for safety, and the wind is so insane that the tree is lifted out of its roots, and he flies.
Yeah. What is wrong with people that they did not love this film?
He shuts a door, and the house just falls apart into pieces of wood.
Yeah. Funny.
Yeah.
There's really, really good bits.
Do you think the house would have killed him?
If it happened?
It was
because
it was 2
if
tons.
it had fallen, you're
is
saying?
what I read.
2 tons?
Yeah.
The facade weighed 2 tons.
Fuck. That is
I think the house
fairly
would
heavy.
I think the house would have killed.
because you look at it and you're sort of like, well, it's a thin wall.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he could have just kind of broken it or whatever. But like,
But balsa would not have fallen as.
yeah, and also like you're like, it's a wall. Like, it's heavy. Yeah,
Maybe it's
you know.
not 2 tons. I mean, I read that on the internet, so who knows?
Internet's always right.
But I don't think that it would have. I don't think he would have loved it.
You don't think he would have loved it?
You don't think he would have got off on it?
No.
I mean,
And when it falls, and it's like, yeah, it falls, and he doesn't die. He also doesn't flinch.
No.
Like he's still in character, looking around.
Yes.
In the befuddled state.
His
after the thing works.
His mark for that was a nail in the ground.
hell yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's why whenever I act, I insist only nails.
Only nails.
Um,
No marking tape.
Yeah. No, take that tape away.
Yeah.
Did you get my box of nails?
Which color would you want to be, John? Nails.
Steel. My color is steel. Nails.
The other thing I love, though, is like he becomes heroic at the end of the movie, but in a way that
Well, I
doesn't
don't act
feel
very
like
often. People get tired of that. Also, I missed my mark. Can't see it. It's
every
nail.
time.
There are a lot of nails in this floor.
House always falls on me. He becomes heroic at the end of the movie in a way that doesn't feel like an unrealistic, oh, suddenly he's become fucking Ethan Hunt. You're
Right.
like, he just becomes kind of practical.
Right.
He figures it out. He saves the 2 people who mean the most to him.
And the scene in which in which his father teaches him to run the boat and he messes up 5 times or whatever because he's got that one lever.
Yes.
Pays off because he uses that lever to run the boat properly later on in his own unique college boy way of running the boat solo with lines of rope.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like it's built in. None of it is out of nowhere. He's a little bit better at it. He's not great. He's not great at it, but it's enough so that you feel like, as you say, that it's perfectly believable within the world of the movie. It's just terrific. And I just have to imagine that people in 1928 were so high on bitters and wood alcohol being injected into their being
Drinking too
injected,
much birch beer.
yeah, being injected into the bags under their eyes. so
collagen
they
fillers
couldn't
of the
see that
day.
this was a really good movie.
Yeah.
Well, let me try and give you some. Let's see if there's any.
Is there
sense
any
to be made
record
it.
of
obviously
the other
like,
movies
One
that
huge
came out
issue
at
is this
that
movie
time?
cost too much money. Yes, there is a record, and we will talk about that. There's also, again, ongoing creative issues happening behind the scenes. A lot of fighting over this disaster sequence and all that. But basically, early into making the movie, also, Joe Skank and Keaton fight over this idea of supervisors, right? These supervisors after the credit for Brand on college.
Yeah.
And Skank is like, "You're done, man. Like, you're not gonna make any more Buster Keaton movies,
Right?
Like, without that." And basically, they split up, and Skank says, "Look, maybe you should go to MGM. Like, maybe shut down Keaton Productions. Like, they have the money, right? It'll be a different vibe for you there." There's a lot of fighting within the biographies over like to what extent Skank would sort of like made money from that, like to what extent like that's an altruistic suggestion from him or more of a like, profity. What you get what I'm saying.
We'll never fully know how Skanky Skank was.
We'll never know the full Skank scale of Joe Skank. But I do think it's similar to like a dynamic we've covered before on the podcast. It's come up with different filmmakers, but almost like Zemeckis with like his motion capture shit, where people go like, "You're done, Robert. You're done. If you want to make movies, you have to drop this shit."
Right.
And he would come back every time and go like, "The last 20 minutes of my movie are going to be set in the center of a hurricane." And they're like, "No, go to college." All of this sort of like technical complication.
But I mean,
Rube
it's
Goldberg
like Verhoeven with the Nazis.
Yes.
He's like, "Steamboat Bill Jr., what's it about?" "I get on a boat with my dad. We're on a boat." "Okay, you're on a boat. That sounds fine. At the end, there's a hurricane."
Right. But
we destroy a town.
Just being like, "Buster, this is over. If you want to be in movies, there's a path for you to keep making movies. You're not doing shit this way anymore."
So Buster decides to switch to MGM, which he describes as the worst mistake of his career. And we can obviously talk about that next week. But
we will.
Ultimately, the film just didn't do that well. It did okay again.
Mm-hmm.
It doubled its budget.
Okay.
It made about 700 in worldwide rentals, 700 grand. So I don't think that it's like a bomb per se. I do think
it should have been an enormous hit.
Right.
Well, I also just think that times do be a changing a little bit.
I was
right?
alive then, and I was saying at the
You
time,
remember. Yeah.
this should be an enormous hit. That was back when I would record my movie podcast on wax cylinders.
Yes.
With an old river tramp as my producer.
Hello. Judge John Hodgman here. Send in your questions via message
Dateline, Brookline, Massachusetts. Hodgman has seen another impeccable film.
You do question though, where you're just like, was he just like too ahead of the curve?
Yeah.
Did this just not make sense to people, what he was doing?
Is this like people are getting freaked out because the train's coming towards the camera?
Like I'm having this play on my iPad as we're talking, and I'm looking at this final sequence, and you're looking at these like huge vistas of like a town getting flooded and a house just like bobbing along next side it, and this woman hanging on for dear life, and him swinging like an anchor. And were people just like, "This isn't funny. This is just like big."
Right.
Well, I mean, and the general ends on that huge spectacle of or it doesn't end on, but there's the very expensive spectacle of the train, going off the burning bridge or whatever.
Less too. They were like, "What is this shit?"
Right. Not funny. Like, in a traditional sense.
Yeah, but people have always gone to film for spectacle, and the hurricane is funny.
You have to stop arguing with the ticket goers of 100 years ago.
I understand. I've been having this argument for 100 years since I saw it
a
in
full
the
century.
theaters.
It's just funny that now you cannot make a film comedy without this degree of spectacle, and the spectacle is bad. And back then, he would give you the most artful sort of marriage of the two, and people would be like, "Get your spectacle out of my comedies."
They would also say, "Get your spectacle out of my soup," because the guy dropped glasses.
Well, yes.
I might agree with you, Griffin, on this element, which is that, like young John Hodgman of real life.
Which is coming to CBS this fall.
Yes, that's what they renamed Young Hodgman at Yale because they didn't find that to be accessible.
That's not their audience.
Yeah.
Little hoity-toity.
Yeah, that was the name of my character, actually.
Little hoity-toity.
It's like, shouldn't it be Hodgman? I'm like, no. That's the thing.
No.
His name is Little Hoity-Toity.
It's like the Bob Newhart show.
We never explain who young Hodgman is.
Right.
Yeah, right.
His name's not Newhart in the show.
Yeah, they're like, no, thank you. We're not doing this. And the last third is a hurricane. But the point I'm saying is this: what young Hodgman seeing this, I didn't understand what I was seeing for sure. Like I didn't get how hard it was to make this go.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand the fragility of the human body the way I do now that my body's
invincible.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone agreed with me. This that kid with the Doctor Who scarf and the fedora.
It's a great body on that kid.
Obviously an Adonis.
Yes.
Like take off those big pants. I want to see those incredibly well-formed calves.
Nothing's breaking him.
Yeah, exactly so. But I guess maybe it was too big to take in to like for a lot of audiences.
It took a couple decades for like movies to catch up with him, and now we look at it and we're like, how did he make this 100 years ago?
Right. CGI, I guess, is the answer.
Right.
Yeah, early CGI.
Yeah.
Buster Keaton. Oh yeah. So the film just look. Variety called it a pip of a comedy.
That's good.
It's not a pip.
But the New York Times called it a gloomy and sorry affair.
Jesus.
Yeah, well,
Bodied.
Notoriously on the money again.
Mordaunt Hall is the critic back then.
His name is Mordaunt.
Hall?
Yes, Mordaunt Hall.
Mordant. Mordant?
You're correct.
Meaning morbid?
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah. Maybe look at yourself, Mordaunt.
The taglines were very Twister focused.
Uh-huh.
Hold on, everybody. It's a hurricane of laughs.
Right.
This one, the screen's first big Mississippi thriller. The Chic of Muddy Waters.
Did you say this year's first big Mississippi thriller?
Correct. The screens. I'm sorry.
Oh.
What a thrill. Worth the price of admission alone to see what happened to Buster when the twister hits the town. Here are the two most interesting ones. Buster's gayest comedy opus simply bursting with guile, and gales of laughter. And then here's one that talk about
kind of laying it on a little thick.
I agree. Talk about Buster being ahead of his time in terms of predicting the genres. Fun, Fast and Furious.
Oh, and I am actually ready to announce we saw Fast X last night that of course Buster Keaton is in Fast X.
That's right.
Yeah,
he appears.
Incredible.
Makes him all the more astounding that I thought it was the worst movie I've ever seen.
You should have had that role. You should have had the Buster.
I should have had
Dom's like, we got one more guy to help us, and then the Steamboat Bill Jr. or whatever,
right?
Comes
I'm
in.
sitting there with my arms crossed, still isn't working for me.
Don't care.
Yeah, it's not CGI. They've actually brought him back from the dead.
He's like, he's alive.
He's alive.
He's literally alive. I plucked him from the time.
And Vin Diesel turns to the camera and he's like, Griffin, he can hang out with you after this.
He wants to.
Yeah.
He heard about your podcast.
He thinks
and
you're
likes
cool.
it.
He liked Draft Day.
Yeah, he thought he liked your gag with the coffee and was mad.
Sorry it was cut out.
It wasn't in the movie.
Has watched the trailer many times. Anyway,
all right.
Fast X sucks.
Let's do the okay.
Yeah, tell me what
Box
people were
office game.
interested
Here's
in
what
besides this
because
movie.
Steamboat Bill Jr. is opening at 10.
Jesus.
Whoa.
Jeez.
Okay.
Louise.
All right, number one is a new film this week. So this is a rival
Dumbass
new
coxswain.
release. Rival new release that is making 3 times as much money. It's making a searing 128 grand over Steamboat Bill's 43.
Okay, give me a genre.
It's a silent drama from the great British director Alexander Korda.
The Grapes of London.
Is it a literary adaptation?
Don't think so. It looks like it's a sort of he's a fancy man and she's a lady. It's Billy Dove and Clive Brook.
Those are the actors?
Those are the actors. Clive Brook, a famous British silent actor of the time. The film is called The Yellow Lily.
The Yellow Lily. Hard to say. No good. Bad title.
All right. Number 2 at the box office. It's a silent drama. This one's based on a novel.
Okay.
It stars Dolores Del Rio, who I know pretty well known. She's a Mexican actress, very important figure in Mexican cinema. Also, Warner Baxter, who is best known for playing the Cisco Kid in Old Arizona, which he won an Oscar for. And it's directed by Edwin Carew.
Edwin Carew.
And it is a literary adaptation.
Yes, and it looks like it's sort of it's a Western, and the lead character, who is the title character of the film, she's half Native American. and there's a whole romantic, drama about this.
If you say the
and
title of
romance.
this film, will you be canceled?
No, it is
Okay.
called.
I don't
thank
want to
God.
guess for fear of
It
being
is
canceled
actually.
for
It
any
has.
guess.
It has the title is the name of one of our mutual friends. She's been on this show.
Fran Hoffner?
Fran Hoffner. No, it would be great if that's what it was called. Emily Yoshida. No, the name of the film is
Hodgman here, Dateline, Brooklyn, Massachusetts. Run. Don't walk to see Fran Hoffner in Fran Hoffner.
The film is called Ramona.
Oh,
Ramona.
wow. Okay.
Ramona. Okay, number 3 at the box office. Also new this week. It's a comedy. A flapper masquerades as her straight-laced cousin to try and impress a potential suitor.
That's a good premise.
So she's trying to be like, she's always trying to be flappery, and then she's like, I can't flap. Can't flap.
The straight-laced flapper.
She's got to pretend to be a normie, a
Her
trad
name,
wife.
the actress is Lois
Norma
Moran.
the Normie.
Norma the normie?
Lois Moran and Neil Hamilton are the stars of Don't Marry.
That's the full title?
That's the title.
I think this one sounds fun. That
Don't
sounds like a
Marry.
pip of a comedy.
Yeah.
That's a pip. That
That's a
counts as a
pip.
Now,
pip.
this next film is a horror film, which is
Oh.
funny because the title of it kind of sounds like a comedy title. Directed by Frank Tuttle.
The Hilarious Murderer.
Starring Esther Ralston.
Death Comes a Laughing.
Let's see. It's about a thrill-seeking socialite engaged to a bland, proper Englishman. And he wants her to purge her of her thrill-seeking ways.
Okay.
So he arranges for her to spend a night in a haunted house to
Ooh.
frighten the audacity out of her.
Wow.
Sure.
Unknown to him, this mansion's being used as a hideout for an Oriental mastermind of the crime world. Okay. Well, anyway, the film is called Something Always Happens, which I assume is sort of a promise of like every 5 minutes, like,
Yeah.
there'll be something new.
Something
A
always
real roller coaster
happens.
hearing that movie described.
The genre of criminals using a fake haunted house to hide
Yes.
out in recurs
Yes.
all the time.
And we got to bring that back. It's been too long.
It's been too long.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Well, we should write it into the Hilarious Murderer,
Yes.
Number 5.
right, Ben? Right, River Tramp?
Yes.
Number 5 at the box office is
I was trying to think of a river trampian thing to say, but
Yeah, I don't
nothing
even
came
know.
to
You
You
mind.
got time to
so,
define the
yeah.
character.
Maybe I'll
and
put in a
refine it.
horn, but I'll make it sound wet.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Number 5 is a part talkie crime
Heart
film.
talking.
So, which means it basically has a musical score. It has sound effects. Doesn't have
Okay.
talking.
Okay.
So it's more of a soundy.
It's more of a soundy.
Yes. It's a lost film.
Okay.
Ooh.
No Prince Known to Exist. Stars Dolores Costello. More interestingly, directed by Michael Curtis, who of course directed
Oh.
a little film you may have heard of called Casablanca,
Casablanca.
along with Angels with Dirty Faces and
Yes.
1 billion other films.
Right.
A Hungarian
Co-written
director.
by Brookline's own The Epstein Brothers.
No. Well, Casablanca was, yes.
Yes.
But no, this film was not. But
I'm gonna guess.
it's the name of the film is the name of a neighborhood in New York that doesn't really exist anymore, but sort of a classic name for like
Little Italy.
classic name for like the sort of tough neighborhood.
Hell's
Tribeca.
Kitchen.
Like that, but no, the film is
The
called
Gasworks Town.
Great guess.
Skid Row.
That's a good guess too, but
Skid
no,
Row.
it's called Tenderloin.
Oh,
Tenderloin.
sure.
Back when they were kind of like,
Yep.
hey, this part of town kind of looks like a tenderloin. If you draw a map,
Yeah, and if you go there, you get murdered.
what happens there? Brutal murder. They'll take your money and your life. Yeah, it's called Tenderloin.
Okay.
She's a dancer in the Tenderloin district. And then a kid in a gang likes her.
Mm.
And they get
Wrong side of the track.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say this right now. That's 1 through 9.
that's 1 through 5.
1 through 5. All those movies suck.
Some other films. So it seems we've
You
got
know
a
what?
movie.
You know that one that's lost? Good.
Think
See ya.
it's lost because you threw it in the fucking garbage.
No, some other films. 1928 film called Skyscraper, starring I'm seeing here the Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Johnson. It's
Yeah.
directed by Ross Marshall Thurber.
Suck Scraper is what I call that.
Best known for being initially written by Ayn Rand. back when she was in Hollywood.
And that was Buster wanted to make his skyscraper movie. And he's getting beaten at the box office by some fucking also ran.
You also have a reissue of the film The White Sister, which has come up in prior box office.
White Suckster.
You have a film with a great title that I think we should remake this film immediately called Glorious Betsy.
Oh, what's her story?
I don't know. She sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Sucky as Sucksty.
And then another great title. Damn, I mean, this would be a fucking great title to this day. A crime drama called Diamond Handcuffs. Great title.
Yeah,
no
Diamond
plot
Handcuffs.
details on that one.
Yeah, that doesn't suck.
No, that's pretty fucking cool,
That's
actually.
good. All of this is in the public domain, right? I mean, this is all IP
Yeah, we
for...
can take this. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild how few proper Buster remakes there have been for how many of the premises just feel like, well, that's just like a perfect comedy setup.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, look, anything with identity switcheroos, or I have to pretend to be an ex when I have to pretend to be fancy when I'm poor, or the other way around. Like I'm always like,
always works.
It's pretty good.
You get a good performer
or
in the
it's
role.
like he's a real straight-laced buzzard and she's a wild cat. You know, I'm just like, okay,
the buzzard and the cat.
Yes.
Buzzard and the cat.
Yeah, you know, doesn't that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, so that's Steamboat Bill Jr. and it is, of course, sadly, the end of Buster's real independent era.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a triumph. I do think it's very, very good. I know that's not like a hot take.
I do too, and to prevent people from thinking that the remaining episode is just going to be some downer postscript, Cameraman, which is his first MGM film, is my personal favorite.
Yes.
I have never seen it.
I
look forward to watching it and listening along.
It is an incredibly simple, straightforward film, but I think it is an absolute triumph, and we're not ending this series on a fucking downer note.
No, I mean, you don't love Spite Marriage as much, right? Like that one.
I don't love it as much, but it's fine. It's enjoyable.
Right.
Yeah, it's better than College.
Now, before we end the episode, could we do a quick merch spotlight?
Sure.
Do you guys, is it okay?
Oh, yeah. You want to do it
So
here?
I have this package here that we got delivered kind of a while ago.
Now, this isn't
Do you recall what this is, David?
This isn't a traditional merch spotlight where we often talk about merchandise that was manufactured specifically for that movie, of which it's hard to find.
So this is Steamboat Bill Jr. merchandise?
This is more general Buster Keaton series merchandise. Ben went down a rabbit hole and decided he needed to own one of these.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to spend the company's money wisely.
Yeah.
And get something that really is useful for the show.
And
is of interest, of course.
Let's see if David or John can identify what this is.
Is it a bottle of wood alcohol and bitters?
Yeah, if you're real bad.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna take my time then.
Whoa! It's a thing that makes noise. It's a clapper.
Oh, why did we talk about that again? That does ring a bell.
Because the kind of comedy that he performs, slapstick.
Oh,
and that's what this is.
It's so annoying.
That's a literal
How much did that cost?
slapstick.
$500.
This costs.
It looks
this
like
is
pretty well made, you know?
It is. It's sturdy.
Yeah, but this is actually vintage.
Really?
Yeah.
So what year?
2022.
Wow, I remember when that was new.
Look, not turn this into a giant merchandise spotlight, but John, I bought a present for you. I did tell you this somewhat recently. We got lunch with our friend Brendan Hines.
I don't get the slapstick.
I told you, just make sure I don't forget
You're going to sign it.
Can I try it? Okay.
Oh yeah.
But John, in addition to being a good friend of mine and a friend of the podcast,
and of Ben's and David's as well.
There are 3 times I clocked in the last 2 years. I have gone to you and went, John, we came up with a dumb bit. Would you do this?
Yes.
Will you record an entire alternate audio track for the Sunglasses On version of They Live?
Correct.
I was very happy to do that.
We came up with this idea. I'm asking you to do it now, but we've already set it up, right? And like in the Coraline episode, I said we had this bit where we found a door in the studio and JD went through the door and you're recording an alternate episode. Would you just do this? All 3 times I didn't go, hey, do you have any ideas? I went, here's an idea. Can you execute this?
Right.
And then for our live show at the Brooklyn Opera House, you were the Phantom of the Opera.
Very good
for that.
First guest.
Thank you. Yes.
Sort of
I had a very nice
tone.
time.
You've been so amenable and you've been so kind every time I throw one of these things out. You go, but of course, and you over deliver. that I felt the need to repay you with something that I know you want, and I've known you want, and any of our listeners know, dead to rights, that
Very kind.
you have wanted.
You did hint that something was coming, but I don't know what it is.
And it's not a guess of a gift.
Shall I open it?
Please.
All right. It's here. It's packaged in has Japanese.
This
on
was
the
shipped
box.
from Japan.
Shipped from Japan.
This was shipped from Japan.
Oh my gosh. Very well wrapped with bubble wrap. Let me make sure to do this on mic because people love this sound.
Sure. Because this is a little bit more of an antique.
I'm going to add a little mouth sound as well.
I
didn't like when
Chew a little bit.
he did the opening of the package.
And this is a regular segment, by the way. Bubble wrap.
What is it?
It's the it's a Playmobil set that I've long had my eye on.
Of course, I know what this is. Then we talked about this on our Master Builder episode.
On our
correct?
Master Builder episode.
Where we had a 40-minute digression on the Playmobil movie. A truly forgotten piece of content.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the the Austrian police officer / soldier from an earlier century arresting a tramp.
Yes.
A wino passed out on a park bench.
On a park bench.
It's Eric Adams' favorite Playmobil set.
Yes. He's trying to put one on every street.
Keeping the streets clean.
Yeah.
Number 5508, mint in box.
Mint in box.
Wow.
Straight from Japan.
I'm not going to open it
But
up.
the box is the real art, I think.
The box is beautiful. Number
What if
5508.
you want to make a tableau?
And also, I don't need to open it because as it says right here, contents is shown.
Oh, take their word for it.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. I wonder, I'll have to research what era this is supposed to be because this police officer has a big old Napoleon hat with a big feather on it.
I think it was manufactured in the 70s. I don't know what year the Playmobil
I'm
set
just wondering
is
when
set
it's supposed to
in,
be
the era
set.
of the
But yes,
set,
all
the
right,
depiction.
right.
Sure.
Arresting a vagrant, Playmobil style. Thank you very much.
You're
Well,
very welcome.
I have to say thank you again for inviting me to rewatch one of my favorite movies and also watch now one of my least favorite movies.
Now you know.
But the favorite one was a real favorite to rewatch. It's been a while and I got to share it with someone I care about and it was terrific. And I think it holds up and I think it's better than those other fucking movies.
I agree. The rest of the box office was
I'm
trash.
really, really mad still, even 100 years later.
It's terrific.
David needs to pee.
I do need to pee very badly.
Great.
And we gotta go. We're gonna be done.
You all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media, helping to produce the show. Thank you to Ben for ordering this slapstick.
That's going in the trash.
This will be great at the picket line for the WGA. Strike.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, sure. Give it
Oh,
to
and they
them.
would love that.
Oh,
too.
they'd
Fold
love it.
immediately. Zaslav will go fine, whatever they want. To put the fucking slapstick
You like
down.
this, Zazzy?
That's what we gotta do. We gotta razz Zazzy until he gives up.
Razz Zazz.
We gotta razz Zazz. Thank you to AJ McKeon, Alex Barron for our editing, Leigh Montgomery in the Great American Novel for our theme song, Joe Bowen, Pat Reynolds for our artwork, JJ Birch for our research. David is storming off in protest. Tune in next week for Cameraman and Spite Marriage. You could go over to Patreon.
You
We're
can.
still journeying through the Planet of the Apes.
We
You a fan of that series?
I like the first one.
You should watch the sequels.
I've seen the sequels. They're great. Yeah, no, I'm a fan. I mean, yes. The answer is yes. I'm a fan.
Okay,
I'm a
I
fan.
wasn't sure.
Well, it's been my pleasure to do all those bits for you. And as you say, you do just give me a prompt and then I just do whatever I feel like doing. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I've loved it.
So also in this box that you gave me with the Playmobil, is my check in here or something?
Yes,
Or-
yes,
yeah,
a
right.
blank check. Yes. We pay people in Playmobiles, not money. It's a very clear system here.
I appreciate it.
And as always, I think that slapstick is going to be a regular part of every on-mic discussion.
What was the slapstick used for in the
So it would simulate getting hit on your bottom. So
Oh,
you swing it, right? And you don't actually connect with the person's bum,
right.
but the board behind it makes the noise.
It's a bum paddle.
Yeah.
Nice.